Welcome to the Scarfey Spurs podcast. In today's episode, I'm Harry Scarfe, your host as always. I'm joined by three fabulous guests in what will be an Aston Villa review show in that defeat, second home defeat of Tottenham of the season, which is a shame. And we'll also be looking ahead to Monaco, talking all things fan forum and everything in the news to do with Spurs. So let's introduce tonight's panel. Firstly, Simon joining us from Sweden. How are you doing, Simon?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Very good, thank you. Apart from the loss.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm actually not that sad about it. It's not the same as it was, at the end part of the Ange era, where every loss felt like a stab to the heart. Now it's more of kind of, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's early, so it's more about what the trends, what you're seeing, how we're playing, and also kind of because I think we went 10 unbeaten before, or like one loss in 10 or something like that. So it doesn't feel too bad. Right? And we didn't play awfully. It feels pretty solid, but with a lot of things that we're probably going to talk about today. But I wasn't gutted. So I'm right. I'm pumped. I'm sorry to talk about it today with you guys.
Good stuff, thank you. That's what I like about you. You're calm, you got a sensible way of looking at it. You're not going to jump after one defeat. So appreciate that.
It's the one thing I have.
Exactly, it's what we love. But thank you. Lewis, welcome back onto the podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, disappointed, but I mean, is what it is, isn't it? I mean, didn't expect to win in the first place, so I can't say we're too surprised, if I'm honest.
No, that's a good way of looking at it. But they're a decent side. I don't think people give them enough credit. A lot of Spurs fans yesterday were saying, look, we've lost to a mid-table team, we've lost to an average team. But I would remind people that it's 5 straight wins now in a row for Aston Villa and 8 unbeaten in all competitions. That's not the form of a side that have literally just turned the corner. They've done that a few games ago. So vital context. Thank you, Lewis. And Peter, welcome back. You've been on twice in quick concession, which is great to say. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Thank you for having me back on. Always love coming on here. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm glad that you're well, and I appreciate you coming on.
Look at that smile. Of course he's got you on. Look at that. Marketable.
Exactly that. But no, it should be a good one tonight. But let's go through the quick partners shout outs as always. Honestly, this is getting longer and longer each time. I don't think it has from this one to the last, but let's go through them nonetheless. So the Kitman UK, firstly, you can check out the Kitman for all your genuine classic past season football shirts, shorts and scarves. So you can relive former players and also memorable goals with some retro memorabilia from the Kitman. If you use the coupon Scarfey15, capital S, you can get a 15% discount. That I've been told lasts for literally years, which is great. Then second, you've got Everything Spurs Discord, one of the biggest online Tottenham communities with over 10,000 members worldwide, increasing quite a fast rate every day. It's owned by Wilsey, regular here on the podcast, good friend of mine, renowned Spurs content creator, graphic designer. He's incredible in so many ways. But inside his server, you'll find live match chat during every single Spurs game, transfer news, rumours, loads of Spurs stuff from banter and debates to gaming as well, FPL off-topic channels, you name it, to keep all things fun between matches. But the way he'd describe it, and I'd agree with him, it's your 24/7 virtual hub for Tottenham fans. So if you're Spurs, make sure to get involved. Third, on a little bit of a personal level as well, we've got Dan Gave's support services, which I'm an ambassador for. They provide experienced staff to support young people to fulfill their potential, develop their skills, and be active and positive members of their community. The key aims for them is build direct relationships, be a positive and consistent role model, coach and mentor young people to develop their skills and teach self-regulation. They have a wealth of experience in social, emotional and mental health as tutors, teachers, senior leaders and HLTAs. They're proud sponsors of Nick Freeman and former Tottenham footballer Harvey White. Then you've got In the 290 for any football analysis or scouts or aspiring football analysis and scouts. In the 290 is a Discord community. Also, this time to share workflows, get real feedback and learn together. And last but not least, our latest partner in Tottenham Programme Collector, supplier of old Tottenham programmes, handbooks, match tickets, and all stuff like that. And 100% of every sale is donated to charity. There you go then. You can check out our partners. But let's talk Aston Villa to start with then. So our lineup for people who didn't see it for the game was Vicario, Porro, Danso, Van der Ven, Spence, Bentancur, Paulinia, Simmons, Kudus, Odobert, Tell. And substitutes, we named one less, or explain why in a second, is Rukinski, Byfield, Gray, Sarr, Bergvall, Johnson, Mawani, and Richarlison. So Kevin Danso replaced Christian Romero in the starting 11. Mickey van der Ven captained the side. Simon, I mean, that wasn't the greatest start to the day, was it? Finding out that Romero had, pulled up in the warm-up.
Yeah, I mean, it was confusing. I watched that live stream that we have from the home games, and he was out there warming up. Everything seems fine. Then I went to poop. Then I came back, and he was injured. It was dramatic. It was traumatic. I mean, I kind of got the sense after the game that he had some niggles, and he was not, he had some skepticism going into the game about his availability, because he came back from international duty with a niggle, as Frank, I think, put it. So yeah, no, it wasn't great. I kind of wasn't that worried, because I trust Danso defensively. I think he's good enough to kind of, especially in a Frank system, he can do a job. We've had issues with how we progress the ball, and I'm sure we're going to dig into that later. And Romero is by far our most progressive passer from deep areas, and I kind of got the sense early in the game, looking at how we played, that the game tactics was set up around what he could give us. So yeah, it was worrying. And then the doggy on that, which we've seen, Spence isn't great on that left side, but the doggy gives us something different again when we build up and in attacking areas, being left-footed. So yeah, it wasn't a great start, but I have to say, even with that, I felt confident going into the game. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Simon, for that one. Lewis, I'll come to you. I mean, the private jet wasn't worth it in the end, was it? Avoiding that saga according to reports. I mean, all for nothing in the end.
Yeah, I mean, shock to the system. Romero gets injured on international break. I mean, you could have written it before, couldn't you? You could have written it before, but I mean, I wasn't too concerned. I mean, I really back Kevin Danso. I think he's brilliant, and I think, to me, in the game itself, he was actually one of my stand-up performers as well. I think he was actually really good defensively. Some of the strength he showed, interceptions-wise as well. I think he's actually very underrated in amongst the Spurs fan base. So I'm not too concerned, really, about Romero being injured. I mean, it would have been nice to see him start, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the end of the world. And I'd probably go ahead and start Kevin Danso again alongside Van der Ven on Wednesday if I was Thomas Frank. Whether or not he does that, it's not really up to me, but so I wouldn't mind it.
I totally agree with you. No need to take the risk, even if it is a possibility, 50-50 Romero, that he is okay. When you've got someone like Danso who can step in and do a very good job. So thank you, Lewis. Peter, a doggy out the squad with irritation, as Thomas Frank named it. I mean, hopefully nothing serious. How many times we heard before that it's a little niggle, a little knock, a little bit of irritation. It's turned out to be, months out. Are you hoping that this is a little bit different and he'll be back quite quickly?
You just never know with Spurs. The backroom staff always say out for 2 weeks, and then they'll be having surgery 4 months later, won't they? But it's just so frustrating, because just when you think, okay, doggy's finally back from injury, pick up a bit more form, you're starting to see more promising performances of the doggy of old, and he's just out injured again. It's just so frustrating to see this. I think he's one of our best players in the team, to be honest. So it's quite unfortunate at such a young age for him to keep constantly these injuries. And, yeah.
Kind of reminds me of Sessegnon in that way, like this really athletic guy that might sometimes be too athletic for his own body. Like, he's so explosive and so physical that it seems like he's breaking down every time he does too much.
Because likewise, it felt like every 2 weeks he was getting injured, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I just hope this is a short injury for a doggy.
I think that's a trauma. You don't want him to be another Sessegnon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want that. Hopefully not. Sessegnon, that story, we bought him and ended up getting absolutely nothing for him. It's a shame. Potential is the word I would say. He's doing well at Fulham at the moment anyway. But Peter, can I stick with you and get your wider thoughts on the lineup? Because I want to know if there's anything that surprised you in there. Maybe Matis Tell starting down the middle could be one.
I mean, I think Matisse Tell should have started because of the form he was in. You know, obviously scoring against Leeds away, then also carried on that form into his international break with the under-21s for France. So I was actually quite pleased to see Matisse Tell start, especially with Audebert as well, because they both seem to be on form. You know, their cohesion together. They seem to both get goals and assists in both games. I think it was for France. I was particularly pleased with that. The one issue, and I feel like everyone on Spurs Twitter especially has been saying it. For our home games, you cannot play Paulinho and Bentancur together. I just think it's too pragmatic for a home game, and one of Bergvall or Sarr should be playing instead of Bentancur. Because for me, you don't need to play both Paulinho and Bentancur together at starting in the starting 11 at home. But for the rest of the starting 11, I was completely fine with Spence coming in through Doggy, obviously with the injury, and I mean, the Romero injury was unfortunate because I literally just sat down for lunch and then saw that he got injured, So, but I was happy with Kevin Dan. So, I always feel safe when he's on the pitch because I think genuinely think he's one of the best backup centre backs in the league. And he showed yesterday with another class performance that he's really, really solid option off the bench. And it shows how good our depth is at the back, to be honest.
Totally agree with that. It's good to see something we can't really say, have we? Well, haven't been able to say, should I say, in the past. But thank you for that, Lewis. Keeping the subject on the lineup, Peter mentions there about Paulinho and Bentancur starting together. We'll get on to how they played in particular in this game. But what was your reaction when you saw them both start together in midfield? Are you one of those fans that just doesn't like to see them together in a game like this?
I mean, I think it just depends on opposition. I mean, I can understand why he's done it. I mean, I think Villa have quite a lot of firepower going forward, and I think they work well together. I mean, I think it's all. I don't think the home context plays an issue. I think it's just it lacks creativity going forward, and it showed in the game as Xavi Simons was very much denied the ball a lot throughout the game, which meant that from our other midfield options in Paulinho and Bentancur, there's no one really progressing the ball, which is a bit of an issue. I can understand why he's done it, but Villa are a very compact team and they're going to come at you on the counter with a lot with, for instance, Morgan Rogers and Donyell Malen, who started as well. So I can understand why he did it, and I wasn't really against that. But I think someone maybe like Papsar could have been utilised a lot earlier in this game. Maybe not starting, but at least bring him on at half time or on the 60th minute. Don't wait right till the end to bring him in, which was maybe a bit of an issue. But I like them starting against each other. I mean, I think best believe against Everton on Sunday, which is a game further in the future. I understand they'll probably start to get against each other again.
Exactly, and we're getting to Frank's comments post-match, but he certainly suggested that there's no reason to change that midfield. Thank you. Simon, before we move on, what were your thoughts on the lineup? Give me your full rundown on your reaction at the time when you saw it.
I was pleasantly surprised because I focused on Xavi being played in the 10. I was actually expecting him to play a midfield three, a really physical, ball-winning three with either Sarr or Bergwall in there instead of Xavi, and having Xavi on the wing. I think we've seen that in these bigger games, City, PSG, that he's gone for that really robust midfield, and he's been hesitant to play Xavi in the middle. So my initial thought was just, Xavi's playing in the middle, that's great. And then the Romero thing came, and then the Doggy thing came, and then you notice him playing Tell instead of Richarlison, and the pivot, as Peter almost called you Poro there. Porosism. The pivot, and I got a little bit less excited. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to know what to expect this early. You have these expectations. I think it's kind of a joke now that it's impossible to kind of guess his lineups. But we're starting to kind of see his preferred lineup. And again, we're going to discuss that probably more. The benefits and the criticism around that. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, and then a little bit less so when I look a little bit closer.
Good point. And also, it's worth noting that Rando Colomwani was back in the squad after what seemed like a lifelong, injury. So really disappointed to see how long he was out for with a dead leg, but he's now back. I'll get to him a little bit later. But Simon, can I stick with you? Because Fast start for Tottenham, 5th minute to open the deadlock through Rodrigo Bentancur. I mean, literally the perfect start, right?
Brilliant cross from Kudos on the wrong side for him, or unexpected side. And then I actually thought it was Van der Ven first who got that header, but it was Palhinha who won that ball, got it into Bentancur, who actually got a good hit on it. I think it came off someone, the defender, before it went in. Brilliant start. And I actually think we played really well the first 10, 15 minutes. Really aggressive, good press. They were trying to play out from the back. We sorted it. We gave them a lot of pressure. Didn't allow them to get far up on our pitch. So, yeah, brilliant start. You kind of went in going, oh, this is going to be one of those good days. But, yeah, what did we know?
Yeah, no. Shame, unfortunately, because one thing I said, it was interesting. I said to my brother before leaving for the game, because he was at home and I was going to it, I said to him, we've ended games well under Frank, which you saw at Brentford, but we haven't had the fast starts that Brentford had. I said, we need a quick start, and we got that. So to be sitting here knowing that we've lost the game and had that fast start, it's like, what? Hang on. Like, the opposites of what you think. So a real shame. But Lewis, come to you, because Simon highlights the importance of that ball from Kudus. I mean, it is like literally a beautiful ball, and we'll talk about later because he didn't get much success necessarily against Lucadinho, but it comes that left-hand side. I mean, just an amazing ball, isn't it, really? On the money.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic cross, and it shows just quality of Mohamed Kudus in general, and how much I think we've relied on him throughout. Because I think if you take his involvement out of our team in that game as well, you come out without scoring, but you also come out against Leeds as well without getting many opportunities. Games before that as well, we rely on this man way too much. I think we need some more. We need to be more creative and we need some more ideas when it comes to attacking, because it's actually scary and it's actually an issue to me that how much we really rely on Mohamed Kudus. And I mean, the goal in general signalled the end of Rodrigo Bentancur's involvement in the whole game, because I didn't really see him after it. I didn't really see him get involved in the play too much. I mean, he did a good job cutting out the play and passing it, trying to get a bit further forward, but he didn't really have much else to say. I mean, in the game in general, I think from that point onward, we just kept recycling the play in general, and we never really got going again. We never really looked like to create a threatening chance. And I don't know.
Can I throw in a funny Bentancur stat?
Yes.
Because you talked about him. I think this is the 5th game he scored that we lost.
God.
Oh, brilliant. That's just
we should
That's a great stat.
Yeah.
That is a great stat.
It is. Thank you, Simon. And didn't know that.
That's good stats, to be fair.
Actually, a Villa fan who posted.
Oh, okay. Not so good then. But no, still, it's Bentancur seems to be the curse in that case. Then something to watch. But no, I think Lewis makes a very good point that Bentancur wasn't involved much after that goal. But Peter, I'll come to you on Bentancur, but a slightly difficult question. And this may seem silly, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In case, do you think that Bentancur does well to actually keep it under the crossbar? Because we saw, like with Palace from Mateta, that glazing miss, just in front of goal. And we've seen, not just this weekend, but generally, especially when the ball's played across at some pace, that's not the example of Mateta to use, but when the ball's played at that pace, believe it or not, some players this season in particular, I've noticed, blazed it over the bar. Does he do well to keep it under the crossbar? I know it looks like an easy goal, but then I watched it back and I thought, that's come to him really quickly.
I think, from professional footballers, you're always expecting them to at least get it on target. But like you said, it's not uncommon that you see players, just sky it into Rosette or, miss it, fluff their lines completely, like Kolo did, in the final minutes of the game. So I think Bentancur done really, really well to, get his body over the ball and keep it on target, which is actually not as easy as it seems, like you were saying, because when the ball's coming down and you're in the box and there's loads of bodies around you, it's so hard just to concentrate at that moment, get your body over the ball and hit it with some power as well, to be honest. So it was a good goal. I know it took a little, deflection or whatnot, but I still think he done, really, really well to get his body over the ball and put it in. I think some of the comments on Bentancur are quite harsh. I feel like he wasn't that bad. I feel, obviously he's recycling the play and trying to keep it ticking. and we would like to see more passes. But when you look at Aston Villa's midfield three, I thought especially yesterday, Kamara was unbelievable. And it's not as easy as it seems, just play into Xavi Simons and, Simons to turn and create chances. As much as we want it to happen, football doesn't get played like that. I think, but sometimes Bentancur, playing it around, into Porro, getting the ball back, switching it. Sometimes you do need a player like him on the pitch for these, type of moments. But yeah, about the lack of creativity.
I actually have to say, I mean, we're probably going to talk about it, but I mean, you're nailing the thing here, I think, a little bit. I think he's really good at following instructions. I think that's how Frank wants us to play.
Yes.
I mean, I've jokingly called this U-ball because how we build up is, really, we play it wide and we go through the wide channel and we don't use the central part of the pitch. And I think that's by design. I think if you look at how we build up, it's a 4-2-4. So, the most players are on the wings. And so the job of these two players are to play it wide. It's more a consequence of how Frank wants us to play, and we can discuss, if that's good or bad, if that's something he's doing now and would, change as other players come in. But I definitely think it's reasonable to have criticism around Bentancur and his instincts, and if someone else should play there, and if they might give us something else a little bit. But I think it's also easy and probably wrong to overestimate how much would change if Sarr or Bergwall was in there, if that's how we are going to play, because I think that is how Frank wants us to play. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Yeah, he wants us to be defensively solid. He especially against Villa, who play really narrow. Like they play, I think they play like a 4-2-2-2-2. So all their players are in a really compact mid block, and so the space is wide and in behind, and so I think you can discuss all that. But I think there is it's easy to find that scapegoat. Oh, it's all about them two playing together. It's all about what their choices as players and their profiles as players. But I also think it's probably more productive to talk a little bit about Frank and what he wants us to do and how we're set up to play.
Yeah, good point still, Ryan. But no, thank you, Peter, for the initial answer, and thank you, Simon, there for a little bit of input. But let's progress. 22nd minute, Van de Ven was booked. 37th minute, then Villa got that goal to pull it back to 1-1 through Morgan Rogers. Lewis, would you say it's a special strike from what he's a special player?
Yeah, I could say that. I mean, I think it was coming. There was pressure on us from Villa for a couple minutes leading up to the goal. I mean, could Vicario do better? Maybe. I mean, I don't really. I mean, there's a lot of heat on Vicario at the moment. I mean, which I think is. I mean, I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, I think, and it was the same question about Vicario as well. And I mean, he hasn't really helped this situation at all, has he? But no, but no, it's a special strike. I can't take it away from Morgan Rogers. It was coming, and Villa probably deserved it at the point because we just hadn't threatened their goal at all from the point that we scored up until their equaliser, and they looked a bit more. It looked like they had a bit more threat about them. I mean, we did nullify them up until that point. I think defensively we looked decent. I mean, Van de Ven made a couple major interceptions and major contributions to that, as well as Kevin Dan. So I thought leading up to the goal, the two centre halves were actually our best players in the game, as well as João Palhinha. The amount of tackles I saw João Palhinha make leading up to the goal was I lost count. I think them three in general were phenomenal leading up to that, but it was coming, and I mean they deserved it. But it's still something that we could have avoided because we seem to lay off them a bit. We seem to let them have the space in and around the box, and it's like if you're sitting at the edge of our box, you can't hurt us. And we never really began to come out of them and really try and take the ball off them. We just sat as a bit of a block in front of the edge of the box, and then a strike like that at the edge of the box was what was going to take to equalise, and that's what happened.
Indeed, yeah, and I think you make some good points there. Thank you, Lewis. But you're right about the whole Vicario discussion. Bring Kinski into it. Who should be the number one is something that is ongoing. And I actually recorded a video last week on the Vicario and Kinski's. I knew it'd been a topic conversation for a long while. It's scheduled for Tuesday. Well, after this weekend, I think that'll be even more of a topic of conversation. So that's on the YouTube channel Tuesday lunchtime. Peter, I come back to you. I've got to mention it, Vicario and his positioning. I think take nothing away from the strike from Rodgers, and whether he's going to save it or not is another thing, or should be saved, it could be saved, and there's a load of questions you could ask, but his position seems to be slightly to one side and very off his line. Would you agree with that?
100% agree with that. I think I'm no goalkeeper, no expert on goalkeeping positioning, but for me, he's too far off his line and he's too far to his left-hand side. I'm trying to compartmentalize the goal. When you actually watch it back and you see Rodgers strike in real time, you're thinking, wow, that's gone into the top corner. When you actually watch it back, you can see it's actually not that much into the corner. It's more into the middle of his goal, and you're thinking, okay, how is Vicario, not getting closer to that? And you see how far off his line he actually is, and Simon was making the action there. It's kind of like looped over him, and I'm not one to blame Vicario too often because I think his shot stopping has kept us in a lot of games and won us a lot of points, especially when you look at Leeds United away, for the national break, in the last minute. He made a fantastic save. But when you see his positioning for that goal, you're just thinking, it's like very simple, schoolboy goalkeeping stuff when you think about it. But take nothing away from the strike. He got a lot of power on it, Morgan Rodgers, and like you said before, he's a fantastic player. I love him at Spurs. Just think he's a special, special talent. But yeah, Vicario is just it's harsh to keep putting the blame on him, but there's times I have to say, look, the positioning wasn't good enough there. So I think we have to blame him for that all.
Fair enough. No, I think that's totally fair to say. Simon, you've been sitting and listening to this, so I'm going to bring you in on this and go slightly differently and look at it from a different point of view, not necessarily on Vicario, but the goal in general. Do you think he was given too much room, Morgan Rodgers? Did we start to sit back and get deeper and deeper? Lewis, I think in particular, mentioned how a couple of minutes of Villa pressure, which in my opinion resulted in us getting deeper. Has this led to this goal? Rodgers seen a little bit of space, drove into it, and got a superb shot, which I think you demonstrate with your hand. It does dip quite a lot.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, well done.
It's not the head on the nail, right? I get this idioms. It's idioms, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I get the idioms, and I often say them wrong with full confidence. So I just want to make sure it's nail on the head. So I actually think it's an issue we've seen a little bit, and I think it's pretty natural thing that happens when you sit off as much as we do. It's the same way we conceded against PSG. If you remember, we started to kind of dip and dip and dip, and then we dropped way too low. And then all of a sudden, there's this space outside the box where we kind of allow him to kind of. And Xavi does it. I think Xavi does it. He tries to kind of get to the ball, but he goes around him, and then I think that shot is like 0.003, which like XG. It's like an amazing shot. Vicario is definitely off in terms of positioning, and if he's a little bit more closer to the ball, in the sense that he's under the ball, he might have been able to get up higher and get a hand on it. But I also think it's an amazing strike. So, I mean, I'm a staunch Vicario defender based on stats, and I think he's a brilliant keeper. But I have to say, he doesn't help me. He's not helping me right now with these situations that make it look, I think, a little bit more up to him. But yeah, definitely. And I think we concede. We're not there yet, but I think we concede the second goal the same way. We kind of get in this lull, which is kind of a consequence of how we play. Like, we are pretty willing to kind of not have the ball and let the other team keep the ball and sit in the mid block or in the low block. And when the danger with that is if you don't get up and keep that block high enough, you get in this situation where you allow a player to come into those areas and get a shot off. And when they do that, anything can happen. It can go off someone. It can, you can get an amazing strike, as we've seen a couple of times this season. And it's definitely, I think, an issue of the team as much as anything else.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Simon. Half time then, it was Tottenham 1, Aston Villa 1. And first half XG, I know some people don't like that stats, but it is expected goals. 0.26 for Tottenham compared to Aston Villa's 0.12. So Spurs getting the upper hand in terms of expected goals. But Simon, I'll stick with you. What are your thoughts overall on that first half?
I think we played well. I actually thought, we dropped off in the later part of the half, which resulted in them scoring, which was disappointing. But you felt that goal coming. I think we first 15 to 20, 30 minutes were in our hands, and the last 10, 15 were in their hands. And it felt like a pretty even game, and like one of those, I think I said it on Twitter, one of those tactical games where two coaches had set up their teams to it was all about the pressing, it was all about build up. And I kind of felt like this is going to be one of those games that is going to be boring to watch, and then it's going to be, either one coach makes this brilliant tactical adjustment that kind of breaks the game open, or it's going to be a shot that goes off someone. And with more the latter example in this instance, because I think the second half continued the same. I also thought, kind of, as I mentioned early, I thought we tried to play out from the back more than I've kind of expected, especially with their playing a pretty high line, and we weren't kind of going, more direct above and over and getting our. We did it with Kudos a couple of times, goes to Porro, he shoots over, and Kudos runs. But I felt like we invited pressure, just tried to play up from the back. And I actually thought this is probably with a game plan that they had going into the game with thinking Romero is going to be in the game, right? So he's going to be able to play, have the ball a lot, and either play direct or, solve those situations. And I kind of felt like we were playing a game tactic that weren't really suited to the team on the pitch. And I think we played more direct in the second half. But yeah, I thought it looked a little bit sketchy, but I thought it was pretty even. But we had gone into the break being a little bit down in energy and in focus.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Thank you, Sam, for that one. Lewis, in that first half, who do you think had the upper hand, or would you say it's fairly even, like Simon says, in terms of, start of the game, we were on top, first 10, 15, but then Villa take a little bit more of control and get that equaliser?
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think it was a bit 50-50. I think there was no one team that had the better chances or were more dominant of the ball or looked better in general. But I mean, going into the first half, across the last 20 minutes of the first half, Villa were definitely getting into the game. They started to get a foothold in the game. And then showing with the equaliser. And from that point on, if anyone was to go and score again, you would back Villa to go and do that. We just looked out of ideas when it already came to about halfway mark of the first half. We looked like we'd already played the game. We looked like we didn't really have any other sort of way of going about scoring. And we looked just a little bit. We just looked a little bit out of it. I mean, I saw that Odebear was starting to drift centrally a lot throughout this game as well, which I didn't really see the need for that to be the case. Matisse would also drift out left a lot as well. Like them two kept switching positions with each other. I don't really understand the goal behind that, in all honesty. I mean, I know that in this attacking line, we're without a distinct number 9 who can hold up the play, because Matisse can't. He's not like him and Richarlison in general. I don't think can hold up play that well. Nowhere near the level of someone like Dominic Solanke, which we're missing a lot in the ability to hold up the play. I think, as well as the crosses, with the amount of crosses you cut into the box in that game as well, you have no one to fill out the box. Because no one's tall enough and no one's an aerial threat enough to fill out the box. And the amount of times you get it to a wide man in Kudus or Odebear, if Odebear was on the left-hand side, you think, what now? Because there is nothing you can really do in this instance. And when it comes to it, we always just pass and knock it around the box.
Can I ask something to you,
Lord,
Peter?
Yeah.
You guys get a sense sometimes that it's all about, getting the ball up, and then when you get a corner, you go, okay, here we go. So it's kind of this sense of It's about getting up wide, and then it's
we're like Arsenal
usually a corner or
we're Arsenal.
a long
We have
throw.
become Arsenal.
Yeah,
I
so
was literally saying to my family, like, you know, when we're attacking, it seems we've run out of ideas completely. And, you know, Lewis was alluding to it before. You know, we get it out wide, and there's almost no physical presence up front in the box. You know, Richarlison, I know Tell's not the tallest, but, you know, without Solanke or even Richarlison or Kolo Muani, it's like we're almost for corners and, you know, more prominently, the long throw-ins. I mean, the amount of times I saw Danso with the towel, you know, it felt like our main way of throwing was the long throw-ins. That seemed like the only way we were
as
going
a
to
fan, you start to think like that. You start to think, oh, they did their job. They got up the pitch and they got a corner. Now they get a good
throwing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back on the game, I'd say the best chance in our second half was a Kevin Danso long throw, and that fell to the feet of Kolo Muani, who miskicked it. That to me is my most memorable chance of the whole second half, and that has come from a long throw-in. Which I mean, under Ange, you would never get that, but I understand that when it comes to our biggest threat this whole game was a set piece. That was our biggest threat by a long mile to me. And if I'm looking like that, it means our attack isn't clicking and it's not doing its job, because if we can't create enough to the fact that we rely on a set piece to get a goal and also be our next best chance in a game, I think this attack needs a lot of work.
And it's really predictable. That's it. That's my thing.
Yeah.
I think it feels really Brentford. It feels like, okay, we go on the white channels. It goes to Kudos or Odeberg, and then they get it back to Spence or more likely Porro. He goes in for a cross. And we don't really have, you know, a lot of players in there. Maybe when Bergwall plays, you know, he likes to attack the box and he's really tall and good in the air. And then it goes to the corner, and then that's kind of how we play. Nothing outside.
Because Simon, you alluded to it earlier. The game plan was almost get it to Romero and try play a ball in behind, because that seemed like the way we wanted to set up. And I think you mentioned it a couple minutes earlier.
Yeah. Because they were so high, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you saw it in the first. I think it was like circa the 7th minute when Van der Ven played a lovely ball in behind to Kudus, who actually, you know, subsequently scored from it. You know, fantastic goal, disallowed. But it seemed like the way we.
And I thought that was like Tell was playing, because Tell is quicker, better at getting in behind, rather than Richarlison that likes to come and meet the ball. So I thought that was really like, okay, that's how he wants to play.
The Romero injury actually hindered us from plans for that, you know, for yesterday's match.
Yeah, definitely.
But, I mean, we have to sympathise with Frank as well in the point that we're without Maddison, Kulusevski, Solanke, and we didn't really replace Son as well. But we never got a replacement, and so that's kind of like 80 goal contributions from our last season that we're just missing in terms of our attacking threat this is, which is something up the board and something we need to look into replacements as well. But when you're without 80 goal contributions going into a new season, that is quite a lot that's a lot you're missing. So I do sympathise Frank a lot within the lack of options he's got.
But Harry, you tell me what, because I have great questions for all of you. I've written them down here. And it's about Frank. And it's about exactly these things. So tell me when.
Go for it. Go on. Ask a couple.
I think this is kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking after the game, Frank talks about the game, and to me, he sounds like a Brentford manager a little bit. He's really pleased. Everything it's an even game. They're really good. I thought we played well, and it doesn't really match with how fans saw it. And I think fans, especially when we play home, have a lot more expectations. So it gets down to this battle and the debate that keeps coming up when it comes to Spurs, which is pragmatism versus bravery. So Ange is way too brave, Conte is way too pragmatic. We have this way, an identity as a club where we want to play with the ball and have attacking football, and especially at home when it goes to, you know, how fans are reacting at home and the expectations we have of us being a Big Six club, where we want to control the ball a little bit more. We want to be more. Basically, Frank is reactive, whilst we probably sometimes want our team to be a little bit more proactive and be more the protagonists, where we dictate how we play. And so comes to this thing where, okay, how we're playing right now, basically being a team that aren't obsessed with possession, but more reactive and play in a way where we are willing to sit off Aston Villa at home and let them have most of the ball, and then counterattack, or basically put a lot of focus on corners, throw-ins, crosses, these marginal gains in the game. And so my question to you guys is, do you think this is like a fundamental part of how he sees the game? Or do you guys think that this is him adjusting to a reality where he doesn't have Maddison and he doesn't have a 6 that's really good at ball playing from deep and being a deep playmaker, and Kulusevski? Do you think this is more him just adjusting and thinking, this is what I got, so I got to lean on great defense and playing it really safe, not, be too brave and too, reckless, but rather be stable and just survive, basically?
Okay, that's a good question. Anyone want to answer it first? Do you reckon?
I'll let you two. I'll let you two go and have a crack.
Go on, Peter.
I mean, like you say, I think, especially for fans, it's so hard to find that balance, because certain fans, when pragmatic performances, just getting the 3 points, whereas other fans are happy with the bravery, like you were saying, and not getting results. I think Frank's he's just come to a new team. He's trying to embed his tactics. I think he's only been here 10, 12 games, however many it is. It's like just trying to dustpan over the cracks from last year almost. I feel like obviously you were alluding to, he doesn't have the players that he wants, or may not want just yet, because he only had the one transfer window. So he's just trying to find that balance right now, and that's maybe why we're seeing a bit of confusion going forwards, or that's why it may look like we're playing a bit more pragmatic. Frank's just saying, okay, let's just try hold out, hold it to half time, because how you were saying we're dropping deeper before we conceded the equaliser. Maybe logically players are thinking, okay, let's just hold out 1-0 till we get to half time, hear what we have to say, or maybe it might have been Frank that implemented it. But it's just trying to find that right.
Because I think that's important, because I think if in his mind he's looking at the context of right now, what do I got right now? What can I do right now? And if he's saying we played a good game from that mindset, rather than this is how I see the game. So in my mind, my way of looking at football, this is a good game, this is a good performance, this is a good level. It's two totally different ways of
analyzing it all.
Comes from two different, perspectives, right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Laurie?
Okay, thank you. Lewis, do you want to say anything?
I mean, I think Peter alluded to the fact that he's trying to paper over the cracks. I think Thomas Frank's main input into our team right now is defensive. The defense is what is, because our attacks kind of, the way you go about our attacking, the way we get the ball to our width is quite similar to how we would do it under Ange Postecoglou. I mean, maybe it's not as much. There's not as much bravery about it, but it's still quite a similar way of going about it. In fact, you get it to our wingers who might have an overlapping run from a fullback, and then you'd also have options at the edge of the box, and then you'd also try and cut it back, which we've done quite a bit. But his main impetus on this squad is us defending, which I think we have. We can see there's so much better. We're so much more defensively capable when it comes to set pieces, defending a set piece, and just overall defending our box in general, which I'm very happy about with the idea of Thomas Frank. So I'm more believe that I think Thomas Frank, the way he sets us up, can be a real success. I just also think that his lack of attacking options is kind of what is kicking him in the teeth at this moment in time. Because when you're without, because one of our best players last season was probably Dejan Kulusevski. He had purple patches, but throughout his impetus in the squad in general was pretty crucial to our success in many games. And when you're without him and the original starting number 10 in Maddison, you have lost so much creativity in this team. And you're relying on a young Xavi Simons who has no Premier League experience to be the sole creator in your team. I think it's just a little bit too far-fetched, which is kind of why we needed maybe a bit more attacking option signings to get behind Thomas Frank as well, which is probably the main downfall to us right now. I think it's a lack of options and a lot of creative options. But I like how he sets up. I think it's a lot more successful, and it's going to pick us up a lot more points over the course of a Premier League season. It's just that the lack of world class. I don't think we have a world class attacker in our team, which is maybe the first point of call, because you're not. He will get there. I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there yet. I think he's on the borderline, but I mean, I think he's going to have to get there. But I can't name you another world class attacking option. But when you look at Arsenal right now, as you hate to say it, I mean, you've got Bukayo Saka. You have, I mean, whether you like Victor Gyökeres, I mean, I don't know about that, but I mean, debate is there. Man City, Liverpool, the amount of world class talent they have is endless, and that's the difference between us and them right now. Because going forward, we just haven't got enough firepower, and that is what the issue around Thomas Frank's team is right now.
So I actually, just to give you, and Peter, you come in after me. I just want to say, like, I actually agree with you guys. I think like he's doing the best he can, what he's got, and for him, he's go, okay, this is what I got, and the best way for me to get points is to be really pragmatic and to be defensive. I still think, with that in mind. Because even if you play that way, you can't win every game, right? And so when you lose, like we did against Aston Villa, people have less patience because they can't really see the bigger picture. Like they can't see philosophy, they can't see what we're building towards, because it's so about in the moment, right? And so I just think it's important to kind of, because I have to be honest and say, I trust him, and to me, he's done more than enough for now to show that he should be given time and patience. But I have to say, I haven't heard him talk enough about his goals. I think like when he extends Brancourt and Palhinha and paid them every game, and doesn't talk more about, okay, this is just right now, and then I want to do this, or he can look at a game right now and say, for now, this is really good. We're trying, but we have to improve on this and this. I think it's important for him to kind of, for his own sake, I think, to kind of send signals to the fans that this is where we are right now, but there's more to come and we're still building. I think Ange, for his faults, was really good at this early, like talking about this is where we are now. We're going to need this many windows before, and Conte as well. And I think just, I think it's good for him to show it, to signal some ambition and where he is and where he plans to go from now. Because I think sometimes, communication, as we all know, is just so important to kind of keep fans in check, if that's not too harsh. Because we know the Spurs fan base can be so reactive, and, as you mentioned at the top of the show, Harry, like some people got really harsh, and I've already seen, not a lot, but in comments like Frank out, this is how he plays. I warn people when you go, okay, it shows that when you play, and I'm gonna use a harsh word here, boring, and then lose, the reaction is just so much more, harsh than when you play really brilliant, fun football and you lose early in the process. At least I think.
I'll say one thing before we move on from this. I just find it berserk, like how quickly you are to judge Frank. I was at the stadium on Sunday, so yesterday, and just like there's one person around me who's like, "Oh, get them all out of my club. They're not fit to wear the shirt." And I'm thinking, we had an opportunity to go second, if we won. I just think that you start the season better than we'd expect, and then people get carried away in the moment, and all of a sudden the results aren't perfect, and people go, what's going on here? But Frank, I really like. I agreed with the appointment, still do. I wanted him actually back before we got Postecoglou, if I'm totally honest with you, but I didn't want to get rid of Postecoglou. That's how quickly things change in football. The only thing I am concerned with, I think right now it feels like, and I could be wrong, the plan I don't think it's Thomas Frank's plan, but the way we're playing, we're just relying on set pieces. Lewis mentioned that earlier. I think you've all mentioned it. And then we're relying on Kudus. So it's get the ball to Kudus or get a long throw or get a set piece. That's all it is. And the reality is sometimes the ball's going to be in play. It's not going to go out, and that doesn't suit us. And sometimes you're going to have like Luca Digne did, where he literally gets the better of Kudus, and Kudus has to come to that left-hand side to get any kind of joy, because I think we can all acknowledge, even with the cash bias kind of aside, he isn't as good as Luca Digne, so Kudus has to adapt his game. So I'm slightly concerned so far that we haven't seen the pressing, in my opinion, that we saw at Frank's Brentford. But at the same time, it's really early days, and who thought was going to be plain sailing, and already a lot better defensively, and that is
Harry, just to
Frank's
give an
number one job.
example, if you look at Erik ten Hag, a mistake he did was to not kind of show the fans that this is our system, this is how we play, this is kind of our principles. And then you look at Ange early, even when we started to lose a little bit, people were so on board because he sold a vision and a project. And so what I'm saying is I just think that's important, that a coach early in the era just needs to kind of show fans that on the pitch, the small pieces that fit together about that showcase what we're going to be. Like, this is just a start, but it's going to be. So it's when it's just crosses, when it's just corners, when it's just that, and then just defending, I think people kind of get insecure, and that anxiety is what breeds that, that noise, right?
Nice, good point. Thank you very much, Simon, and great question. We'll get to some of them a little bit later. Can I come to you, Lewis, before we move on eventually to that second half? I mean, Paulinho, you mentioned it yourself in terms of a lot of tackles he's making. I mean, across the whole 90, but I think in particular that first half, I mean, A, he made loads of tackles, didn't he? And B, based on what you've seen of him so far, would you sign him permanently?
Yeah, I think we'd be at this current point in time ridiculous to not. I think he's probably been across the whole Premier League season, or across the whole season up until this point, one of the most consistent performers, and someone that has really, I mean, he's kind of transformed our midfield in the fact that we've been able to have someone who can cover the back two of the two centre halves and really cut up play. I mean, some of the tackles and interceptions he's made has actually been crucial for us starting a counter-attack. I mean, he is pressing as well, because he also presses a lot. I mean, like, he's just a workhorse, someone who does all the dirty work that no one else really wants to be doing, and he's just so good at it. But I know there was criticisms about his age, being that he's 30, but I don't think 30 is that old anymore. I mean, I think we've just got such a young squad that 30 just kind of, so our 30-year-old is just like one of our oldest players in the squad now, that you think, whoa, what's this 30-year-old doing in our squad? But I think it's because we've got such a young squad. I mean, Man City last year, the whole midfield was like above the age of 30 with Kovacic, Bernardo Silva, Gundogan. Like, there's so many older, established midfielders, and that everyone thinks that now you now need to have someone who's really young, but it's not the case. I think he's probably our most consistent midfielder this season. To come in, he's a leader. You can see that he communicates a lot with our squad as well. He's so crucial to our team, and I mean, I think it's £25 million. I mean, 30 million euros, I think, or something around that region. I was 100% paid. I mean, the value he's added to our team is like, he's so crucial to our team right now. And to take him out, you can't imagine the Thomas Frank team without him in it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And I think you put that really nicely, Lewis. In my personal opinion, totally agree with you. I think he's been excellent. I do think we lack a little bit of experience at times. So good chat with Paulinho there, but sided him permanently. But let's progress for now. 60th minute, so on the hour mark. The Spurs substitution, on comes Richarlison for Tell. 61st minute, Villa made a double change. On come Buendia and Watkins. In my opinion, this is where the game changed slightly, and off come Marlin and Gustafsson. But 67th minute, Kevin Danso was booked. And then 77th minute, so talk about 16 minutes after Villa made that double change, Villa get that goal to complete the comeback and take the lead through Emi Buendia. Simon, I mean, another top strike, probably given too much room, but still does really well to find that bottom corner. You're on mute, by the way.
Amazing. Also casual as well. Kind of annoying. Yeah, it was amazing. I actually, you barely had a chance to kind of see it. It felt like a hockey goal in that sense. It was like, what? Okay, it's in. Yeah, but again, I felt like that whole period was really odd because you could see that goal coming again for 10 minutes almost, 10, 20, 15 minutes. We started to drop off. As we did in the first half when we conceded, got deeper and deeper. And then for some odd reason, you start to think, okay, we need a sub on. And then there was like a 10-minute tactical run through on the side of the pitch with Bergvall and who else? Kurumwane. And I kind of felt like the players were expecting a sub, and I was just at this awkward moment. I kind of felt like Frank really got that wrong. And then that goal came, and from then on, I kind of knew that we were not going to come back. But again, I think that goal was, 0.0002 XG. It was like a really low percent chance. And I mean, we've been that team, right? We play City, we have 2 shots on goal, and both go in, and that was what Villa did against us now. So yeah, a brilliant goal. But I kind of felt like we did it to ourselves. We could have made quicker changes. We saw where things, or at least I saw where things were heading. Xavi was not involved at all. Odeberg weren't really doing a lot at that point. And Kudus, per usual, what was our only output. Getting someone like Bergvall in, crash the box and press would have helped us win second balls. Was really obvious that was much better option for that second half for quite a while. I thought for that.
100%. Big up, by the way, to regular here on the podcast, Philip King, who's dropped a message. Of course, he does always join from Frankfurt, Germany. He said, even all, great podcast, lots to be positive about. He's right. Frank will get us to where we need to be. Come, you Spurs. Always love his optimistic kind of look, glass half full way of looking at it. And he's right. Still a lot to look forward to. And there's just about people online that now saying Tottenham are a mid-table club, or I saw someone say, we're destined for a 12th finish. We're going to become the club like Crystal Palace. I mean, where's this come from? And I know this one in particular guy, I went back and I thought, this is going to be interesting. Let's go back to when we're winning games. And he said he thinks we're going to finish inside the top 4. I found that, which was quickly removed. But I thought, really? I mean, opinions change. I get that. But you're spouting this rubbish. We're going to finish 12th. But that is football for you. But Lewis, I want to come to you and talk about Emi Buendia specifically before I get more into this kind of goal, because would it be fair to say it hasn't really worked out for him in an Aston Villa shirt? Of course, at Norwich, very key player, if I remember correctly, mainly as a right winger, but there are injury problems and different reasons hasn't really worked out. But this season, he looks like a completely different player.
Yeah, I noticed when he got subbed on, I was like, he was really getting involved in the play, and I said I was next to my dad, I was like, Emi Buendia is a bit of a problem here. And 10 minutes later, he goes and bloody scores. I mean, like, it was actually quite written how much on the play he was getting involved. He was generally, and I was literally there thinking, why is Xavi Simons not getting on the ball that much? Like, Emi Buendia was literally hating Xavi Simons as it was literally just showing him how to do his own role, because I couldn't count. Xavi Simons barely touched the ball. He barely got in attacking, threatening areas, and yet Emi Buendia was barely on the pitch 5 minutes, and he was already linking up play so nicely for Villa, and he was their main vocal point of threat going forward, trying to get slip a play to Ollie Watkins, who also got subbed on at the same time as him. So, I mean, he was really getting into play, and then that shot, I mean, it was actually a very nice finish. Which I forgot about Emi Buendia entirely. And someone else that Villa also brought on a few minutes later, I forgot about, was Ross Barkley. I forgot he played football. I mean, it was actually quite great. When the announcers said coming on Ross Barkley, I was like, whoa, he still plays football. That was crazy. That was a crazy Barkley Premier League throwback. But I mean, it was Emi Buendia was a problem, and we never really trapped him. I never really seemed to. We just let him have the ball and let him go and create, which was a bit of an issue for us. And he was definitely a stand-up performer when he got subbed on.
Certainly was, yeah, absolutely. And Lewis, sticking with you, I mean, do you think Paulinho could have done maybe a little bit better in this situation? Obviously, he's sung his praises, and the way I say that is, I believe, if I remember correctly, being this other stadium, haven't seen it back, so forgive me, but he clears his lines, and I think Villa, they create. In the end, it comes to when Deary scores, I think probably about 20, let's say, seconds or so later.
Yeah.
But they're being super critical. Could Paulinho be a little bit more, I don't know, get the ball on the floor and play? I mean, there's probably a little bit of pressure around him, but Odebear was away on the counter and he does clear his lines. Could he have acted differently maybe if he looks back?
I mean, maybe. I haven't really seen it back either, so I mean, I'm trying to remember the goal, but I mean, yeah, Polino probably could have done better, I think. But I mean, it's just pinpointing it down to Polino, probably one of our good best performers in the game. You can't, well, he could definitely be doing better, but I can't take that away from his performance in general when we relied on him so much throughout the game as well. And in the first half, especially, some of the interventions he would make through interceptions and just challenges where he was bossing the midfield in general, I can't really take that away from his overall performance, because I could not imagine that game without João Palhinha, because although as much as I like someone like a Lucas Bergvall, who we probably needed, or some Papsar just to carry the ball a bit forward, and I like Lucas Bergvall much deeper than the 10 role, because he works so much better in open space where he's got a lot of space around him than when because Xavi Simons' role is dependent on him being in a really close gap and hiding in the pockets between the defenders. But Lucas Bergvall cannot operate that way in general. That's why he needs to play alongside Palhinha, which I would have understood. Some fans even called around to drop Palhinha and play Bentancur and Bergvall, Bentancur as well, which I thought was crazy. And I think we definitely relied on Palhinha, so I can't take that much away from his performance. But I think he could have done made a bit more sensible option.
I think that's fair enough to say. It's reasonable. Thank you, Lewis, for that one. Peter, I'll come to you again on Buendia. I mean, he was just starting to find pockets, wasn't he? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I knew he was going to score, but it just felt like our midfield looked leggy at this stage. Do you think that's more a case of because Buendia come on fresh legs? He just seemed to get in between, in particular, Bentancur and Paulinho, and just cause them a little bit of a problem. Well, I remember them looking at each other when the ball went out, and it's kind of like talking to each other. Maybe they were saying, who's going to pick Buendia up here? Because we just couldn't deal with him, could we, even before the goal?
I mean, like you were saying, it seems like he was always finding those little pockets in between, the midfield and the defenders. And I, for one, was, quite shocked that he didn't actually start. It's considering the good form he's been on. I think he scored in the Europa League and in their previous game against Fulham. So he's been on particularly good form, and obviously historically, like you're saying, for Norwich, a fantastic player. So I was quite confused why he wasn't starting this game, and I was actually quite happy with him. And when he came on, you could see that difference in Aston Villa. He was making everything tick, wasn't he? Like, Chris Key was the best player on the pitch, and almost when you look at that goal, you could even argue it was goal of the season. I'm going to say it from now. I mean, that pass from Cash, the touch from Digne, and then him, Buendia, to receive the ball, and then up his body just perfectly placed into the corner. I mean, it was an unbelievable finish from Buendia, and you can take nothing away from that goal. But overall, I think he was one of the best players on the pitch when he came on.
Totally agree with that. Simon, I hate to be critical. Could this double change, which come in a minute, which we'll get onto, come earlier for Tottenham? Because one of them was a midfielder in Bergvall, and I just felt at the time that his changes had to happen. There was one opportunity, the ball went out, I think a Villa play went down, it was out for about 45 seconds, again, if I remember correctly, haven't seen it back. But Frank's still giving instructions to Bergvall. And I'm sitting here thinking, you've got 10, 12 minutes left. Tactics are important, don't get me wrong, but let's just get him on the pitch, because Buendia's starting to find gaps. So, Simon, in theory, do you think these changes should have been made a little bit earlier by Thomas Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I was mentioning it before. To me, it looked like Xavi wasn't really having an impact on the game, and it kind of goes back to something else I was planning on asking these guys. I felt like, okay, so he brought Xavi in, which I was pleased about, but he wasn't really using him, right? And so big thing with Frank was his ability to maximize player strengths and play and adjust to get the best out of players. And I kind of felt like in this game, he put him in, but the game plan was really about, playing pretty, but crashing the box and crossing, right? And playing wide. And so if you look at the pass map, and I actually put one out this week, you can see that number 7, Xavi, is totally isolated from the passing map. So no passing lanes, no passes going to him. So he wasn't impacting the game. We're playing through him, and then if we're not using his ability on the ball, off the ball, he becomes a little bit of a liability because his strength isn't to press and be physical and win balls. And so I kind of felt like in that second half, around that time, it was really just, chasing the ball. And it felt like very well can do this a lot better, or Sarr or Gray. And so I think if we made that sub earlier, we probably would have had a better chance of getting up the pitch. So yeah, I definitely felt like that it was one of those things where I get he wants to involve Xavi and he wants to play, and he's seen the reaction of fans wanting Xavi to play. But if he's not going to play to his strength, I'd rather him play players that optimize the way he wants to play. So yeah, I actually think that those subs coming so late impacted the game. But then you can't say for sure. I'm not a coach, and you can't turn back time, and it's all speculation. But yeah.
No, exactly that. No, spot on. Thank you. 79th minute, Spurs double change, which I'm talking about here. It's Moani and Bertha out to come on for Odobert and Simmons, but good to see Moani back on the pitch again. But full time it did end Tottenham 1, Aston Villa 2. So actually in the end, expected goals was Tottenham 1.08 and Aston Villa was just 1.41. I think that tells you all you need to know. Peter, can I get your thoughts on the game as a whole? In your opinion, did we deserve something from the game?
I mean, I heard Thomas Frank say in the post-match interview that he felt 1-1 was the fair result. When you look at the game overall, I don't know if I can agree with him, to be honest. Other than, our goal we scored in the 5th minute and, the fast start, with the disallowed goal from Kudus, I think we touched on it earlier in the podcast. We almost never looked like we were going to score. I know we had chances here and there, but we just never seemed convincing, in the final third. And it's always, just try to get a long throw in or win a set piece, score from a corner. That seems like our only chance of scoring. So when I'm hearing comments from Frank saying, 1-1 was the fair result, I'd have to completely disagree. I think we can't, say Villa played bad because we had 2 shots, because I thought Villa pressed really well. They played out from the back really, really well. I mean, they hardly made a mistake playing out from the back. And I know they didn't have chance after chance after chance, but they still, kept the ball moving, got it forward, and scored 2 fantastic goals. So as a whole, it wasn't, a promising performance. And I think that's, the 3rd home game in a row in the Premier League where the home performances just simply have not been good enough. It's in contrast to, the away performances. The thing about Brighton away, really good performance. I know we didn't win that game. And obviously beating Man City, West Ham, and Leeds away, thinking, wow, away form's been really good, but we've not seemed to replicate it at home. I know we beat Burnley 3-0 in the opening day of the season, but after that, you think Bournemouth away, we completely played against Bournemouth, and it should have been more than 1-0. Even Wolves at home, I know we got a point in the end, thanks to Palhinha in the dying minutes, but again, not a convincing performance. And then you think about yesterday. Then before the game, every Spurs fan was thinking, okay, now let's try to get a nice, convincing home performance. And once we got the early, goal and the fast start, you're thinking, okay, it's going to be today. You're watching the whole game, go along. And Simon touched upon it earlier. It's almost like we just kept sitting back until we conceded. And after we conceded, we seemed to snap back out of it, let's try to play it fast forwards again. But it didn't really seem to work for us. We had a nice little spell briefly at the start of the second half where we created a couple of chances. I think Palhinha had a shot and Odobert had one, blocked by Aston Villa player. But other than that, we didn't really create anything, and it, in my opinion, was not a very good performance.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty more than anything there, Peter. It's refreshing to hear, so thank you very much for that. Lewis, coming to you, do you think that, I don't know how to word this the right way, but maybe the mentality's wrong from Thomas Frank, because you don't get me wrong, we do really well to come back and draw games, but you hear a lot of, we deserve to draw, or we're delighted with the draw, as a term Frank often uses. And he's like going here like, oh yeah, we deserved the 1-1. Should he be looking at this a little bit differently? And I'm not saying he's not trying to win the game, but it just feels like we're always aiming for a point. Can you understand, that where that's coming from?
Maybe. I mean, I think he just Frank's in general is the way he looks about things and the way he sees things. He's just very. I mean, I think maybe to us, the way he presents things is different to maybe how he views things in person. I mean, I know that at the start of the season, the reporter, like they said that Spurs have been tipped to finish like ninth in the Premier League. I think it was like ninth or eighth, and he was like, oh yeah, I'll take that. I'll be more than happy with that. But I mean, I don't know if it's his kind of. I mean, maybe he's just trying to not let on his ambitions. I know that Ange, in front of the media, was very honest. He said whatever was on his mind. He didn't really care about the repercussions. I think Thomas Frank's maybe more when it comes to the media. He's trying to be a bit more calm-headed and not trying to let on as much what he thinks and try to keep it all as minimal as possible as to what he actually thinks and what he views about how we come about games. But maybe he is still like Brentford. I think maybe as a Brentford coach, at home to Villa, yeah, you'd take a point. Maybe 100% you probably would. Maybe he's still trying to bring elements of that. But I think it's just adapting to this as a role as well as Tottenham head coach. I mean, because as a Tottenham fan, we can say the Brentford job stepping up to Tottenham club is a massive deal for Thomas Frank's career, in that he's finally got the reins and the keys to a big six club who. I don't know what we have, because this upcoming January window is going to be our first window without Daniel Levy as our executive chairman for over 20 years. So I would love to see how this January transfer window and the first summer transfer window pans out without Daniel Levy at our club, which is going to be very interesting to see. But but he still needs to have a window, and he still needs to implement, get ideas from a window of players to come in. I mean, maybe he's looking at it in the way of, I'm without Madison, Solanke, Kulusevski, a point at home. I'm happy with that because I've still got loads of interest. Because we still are quite injury riddled coming off last season. In that we're lacking attacking options. So maybe he can sit there and say the performance against Aston Villa was encouraging without my options and without the players I want to play. Maybe that's what's coming into it. But maybe his mentality can be questioned. I mean, it's just interesting. I think he's very, very pragmatic in what he goes about, and he's just trying to set us up in a way of really being defensively astute and attacking wise. We've just got to try and nick points where we can. But I think you can see our approach to going into games defensively. We look very capable, which is something you couldn't say a year ago, which was our biggest issue. And he's come in a matter of weeks. He's sorted out our major issue at the club when it comes to playing football, which was defensively and keeping the ball out the back of the net. And even with Vaccaro, who's had quite an iffy start to the season, we're still looking pretty comfortable. So to that, I can say that his mentality about approaching games is, when it comes to defending, is top.
No doubt about that. Thank you, Lewis, for that very good response there. Simon, I'm going to challenge you here. What one word would you use to describe that defeat, and why? Get you thinking.
One word. That's hard. Uninspired.
Yeah.
Uninspiring.
Okay.
So I actually want to say something about what Lewis mentioned there. I actually think there's a couple of. I want to be more direct. I don't think the way he spoke after the game, especially with the club media, is good enough. But I am understanding of where it comes from. He's been the coach of Brentford for 7 years. He's done those interviews thousands of times, probably, or at least hundreds of times. And so he speaks from the heart. He's really honest. He says what he sees. And so, and I'm definitely sure that he's speaking from a very, for now, it's good enough for now kind of perspective, right? And so it becomes our job to interpret that or infuse what he's saying with a certain type of meaning. But I think it is an issue when the coach says he sees one thing and the majority of fans see something else, right? So when we see and think that it's not good enough and he says it is good enough, that's not really, I don't think that's a good thing, right? So that's kind of what I've alluded to before. Like, he has to speak as the coach of Tottenham. I think that's going to come. I think he's going to learn the expectations of the fans and the club of the stature, and that there's this bar that you can't go below. And I think he's going to learn that playing at home and how you play is really important. And I think he's going to learn that stuff that he talked about earlier about attacking football and stuff like that, that some of that needs to come a little bit earlier than he might have planned in his perfect plan. Because I do think it's important just to keep everyone together and to kind of, as I said before, sell the project. When it comes to this issue of scoring goals, I saw a comment from Philip before about him not having Kulusevski, and we alluded to it, not having Kulusevski, Madison, Son, and Solanke, and something like 80 goal contributions not being in the team, and us needing to be understanding of that. I 100% agree. I think you have to kind of, look at what we have and realize that we had like a 20-year-old and a 21-year-old on the wing, and really defensive midfield, and a side we haven't, he's 21, right? 22 maybe, in his first season in the Premier League, and you have to be really understanding of that not being, the same as having Kane and Kulusevski and Madison, and it's going to look different, and the coach is going to need to adjust to that. But when I look, we've actually scored the third most goals in the league this season. I think we scored 14 goals. I think that's the fourth best right now. So we haven't had an issue with scoring. What we've had an issue with is chance creation. I think if we look at our 10 or 11 games we've had, I think we have like an XG of 1.1 over those games. And yesterday we had 3 shots on goal. And I think based on the last part of the second half, we got up to 50% possession and but for the most part of that game, we sat, deep and pretty much defended. And I just think that it's important for the coach to say, we're not creating chances. We need to be better at controlling the game, and we want to be more attacking, while saying everything that Philip Luis alluded to, talking about this is good enough for now and stuff like that. So, and I also think that has to do with how the fan, because there's been a lot of talk about the atmosphere in the stadium. I think if you have 2 shots on goal and you barely attack, that's not really going to inspire the fans to sing and be engaged. And if you've lost, 18 games or something at home, and the 3 games before you couldn't even reach an XG of 1, meaning you barely created any chances, that's not going to get anyone up their feet. So I think
I know it is fair, but I think atmosphere in general is actually just a bit of an issue. I think it's been an issue for the last few years.
It's a deeper problem. It has to do with tickets, prices, and where people sit. There's a lot of things
I don't even
can speak to with a lot more accuracy than me.
I don't think it's. I think ticket prices don't help, but I also think I've been to quite a few games. I haven't been to loads in this. I've been to a decent amount, and for what I can remember, the limited games that I went to at White Hart Lane, the atmosphere was so much better. On a regular mundane Premier League game, the atmosphere would be better at the White Hart Lane than it would be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But the nights, for instance, Bodo Glimt at home, I think the semi-final where I went to, that was a credible atmosphere. I think we're very much a big game atmosphere club. I don't know if you can say that, but I think when it comes to the magical nights, I think we're really up there for atmosphere. But when it comes to a mundane Premier League game, we are a bit of a library. I think that just needs something. That we need to do something.
I just want to add a point because
sorry, Peter, go ahead.
I was just saying, you were saying it earlier, the home performances. I think you said, was it 3 wins in 18 in whatever it was?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not exactly going to get the fans singing off their feet. And I think the performances on the pitch need to. I know obviously we should support the team no matter what, but some of our fans are reactive, and we can't change that. That's just what football fans are going to be like. So when
look at the 10 first games under Ange when people ridiculed Bizuma and the team for taking out their kids because everyone's singing Ange again and was on, And I think, of course, it's because we won a bunch of games, but I also think it's, we saw something. We got our Spurs back. I think there is something part of inspiring people by showing this where we're going, and I think it's probably my sister's following.
All right, no worries.
Probably on listening.
Because you were saying about inspiring performance yesterday, and
anyway, I'm on the podcast. I'll call you back.
That's fine. No, you make a very good point.
Yeah, I think I made my point. I just think there is something to just acknowledging where we are, because I think most part, people are reasonable and understand the reasons around it. I just think it's going to need a second to just get to know the club. It is a special club. It's anxious and reactionary, and we've got high expectations, low confidence. It's all sorts of things.
Thank you, Simon. Before we go further in this review, Peter, can I give you this question from a listener who says, it's from Leo, so pick up Leo firstly. He says, how well do you think the team works breaking down structures of other teams? So what do you think, Peter, based on what you've seen so far with this Tottenham ability under Thomas Frank to break down other teams? Low blocks was, of course, a big issue under Ange Postecoglou.
Well, thank you, Leo. That's actually a really, really good question. I mean, when we're playing against different teams, some teams actually get back against us and some teams come out and play against us. And, yesterday, especially, I feel like Villa didn't really exactly sit back. But I think Simon said, the 4-2-2 formation, their structure was so solid in the midfield. It was generally hard to break them down. And it's almost like we had to work out how to get around them because we couldn't exactly go through them. So we were always trying to play around them. And, it didn't bring much success for us in the game yesterday. But when I'm looking at previous games throughout this season, Leo, I'm looking at, Leeds away. You think they hadn't lost a game home for a whole year nearly. I think it was circa 22 matches. So when you think, okay, Leeds away is going to be solid, they're going to be solid defensively. We seem to break them down all right. I know we scored 2 deflected goals, but we did seem to break them down all right. And then you're looking at teams that maybe come up against us, like City came, the game at us, and we seem to break them down quite well. So I don't think breaking down teams has been, too much of an issue for us, Leo. But yesterday people could argue it was an issue because Villa up so well with Kamara and Onana, trying to just get through, work our way through that midfield. We almost couldn't break them down, if that makes sense. I just felt they were really, really solid in midfield. We always had to play around them, like Simon said, the horseshoe formation.
That's a really good point. Hopefully that answers your question, Leo. And Peter, thank you for your response. But it was a good question, that was. So I picked out a quote from Thomas Frank post-match, which really stood out to me. He's asked about the midfield against Aston Villa. Firstly, I find it interesting that he was asked about the midfield. I think it tells you something there. But he said, personally, I think we got it right today. That was in a direct response to the midfield. Have you got the right balance midfield? And he said, personally, I think we've got it right today. Lewis, does it concern you? And some people will look at that and go, has he learnt lessons from Bournemouth? And by the way, I think you're spot on. Like with Paolini, I think he's fantastic. Definitely should be in there. But can you understand why other people go, look, against Bournemouth, Paolini and Bentancur together didn't work. But, you've started them both again and we lose another game at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think hindsight is the virtue. I mean, because you can always say this, but I mean, I think before the game, I personally would have, that's just me, but I think when it comes to teams like Aston Villa at home, I think if we would have started Polina, if you would have started Polina or Bentancur alongside maybe a Bergvall or Papsar, and our midfield got overrun in the first half, I think it definitely is a plausible effect that it could have happened, or definitely a plausible event that could have caused. Because I think that although as much as Papsar and Burville are quite astute, they can create deep, they can carry the ball a lot forward quick. I think that in the midfield, that then it's just getting the right balance, and them two complement each other. Bentancur and Pellegrini complement each other really well. They have the chemistry. They know each other's game, and you clearly can see that. And it's just stability wise, I think defensively it offers a lot. Them two sitting together, and it's just what you want to compromise. It's if you want to compromise a bit of defensive stability in order for maybe a bit more of to have a bit more foot on the ball going forward, and can quickly with Papsar, the way he carries the ball forward quickly, can just like that. I just run and you can quickly turn the corner defensively or in the attacking process. But then again, if you're hit on the counter again, you would much rather Bentancur sit in alongside you. So it is really what the game demands. And maybe against Villa in the first half, the game would demand, because we had a ball maybe a bit more, the game would demanded maybe a Papsar or someone to maybe carry the ball a bit further. Yet the game could have panned out a lot more differently in the fact that you'd be screaming there that you need a Bentancur to sit alongside Pellegrini. So it's really the case of what the game demands. I mean, I think Thomas Frank's maybe a little bit arrogant in his way to say that I think he got it spot on, because I don't think he did in terms of that the midfield, there was nothing wrong with it, because there was something wrong. We just couldn't create enough. You need to look into that. It just depends.
Well,
maybe he needs to. I even thought with Thomas Frank that, because a lot of the times against Brentford, he would also at home he would sit at 3, and then maybe which gives you another man in midfield. Which I've been for. I mean, obviously, I understand that Romero was out injured in this game, but I think before games, maybe against Aston Villa, you could sit at 3 of Van der Ven, Romero, and Danso. Gives you an extra man in going forward. Maybe you have Jed Spence and Pedro Porro, the 2 wing backs. Because obviously we know that Pedro Porro defensively can be a bit of a question mark. Although I think it has improved this season. Don't get me wrong, I think it has. And loads of other opposition fans have questioned Pedro Porro. He can't defend. He's a bit defensive, but I think this season he's really stepped up his game defensively. But I think him and Jed Spence could offer a lot of wing backs, and it gives you another man in midfield. So you can have Pellegrini and Bentancur. You'll also have Lucas Burville potentially as well in there as a 3-option midfield, and maybe have, I don't know, Kudus and sitting alongside Matisse Tell. So I don't know. The options are endless, but I think Pellegrini, Bentancur. I think did he get it right? And I think the midfield is a bit of an issue. I think he needs to look into the midfield, because I think right now as a fan, I think defensively he's done phenomenal, and he's really overturned our defensive issues, and he can sit and he can rest on that the fact that defense is doing its job. But you need to look further up the pitch now.
Very good points raised there. I just let people know Simon has had to leave immediately, so hopefully he is okay. And thank you all for your understanding with that. I'll keep you updated. Peter, can I come to you? You talk about you don't agree with Thomas Frank. I think you make a very reasonable point. Frank seems to think that we created a lot of chances. Do you think we created a lot of chances? Because you alluded to you didn't think we did. Would you like to expand on that maybe a little bit more?
I have to disagree with Thomas Frank with what he's saying there. I mean, I don't know what he considers as, high quality chances, maybe, because if he sees, the long throw-ins, they're going into the box, we're winning a flick on, it's flicked away, we might have a small, chance, nothing too big. If he sees them as big chances, because for me personally, I haven't seen us create many, clear-cut chances, if you'd say, where the ball's played through and, someone's through on goal and you're thinking, go on, there's never a period in the game as well where, there's chance of, and I feel like in most of the games this season, we haven't actually created multiple chances throughout the game. And Lewis was alluding to earlier, I think someone in the comments was about setting up in a low block. And I have to agree, because I feel like when we have set up in the low block, that's actually when we've had our best chances in the game. If you look back at the PSG game and the Manchester City game, you could tell we set up in a low block. And I thought they were the games where we had, joy going forwards. So I think I have to disagree with what Frank was saying about the, chance creation being high. I'm really not agreeing with that.
Fair enough. That's a decent point. And Peter, can I stick with you? We've spoken about our home atmosphere, but on the home form, you reference it. 3 wins in 18 games. This is becoming a bit of an issue because we used to have an amazing record. Lewis mentioned earlier about the old White Lane. I mean, at one point our record was amazing. I think it was close to a whole season unbeaten.
Yeah, we were. I think under Pochettino, 2016-17 went a whole season unbeaten.
Yeah, there you go. Whole season, didn't know it was quite a whole season. There we go. Whole season unbeaten. Where do we fix this issue of home form? And get Frank's honest. You're right. You both said it. He's honest, but he's saying there is no kind of immediate fix, suggesting like it's long term. How do you fix it in your eyes? I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no manager, but I do agree with Frank. I don't think it's a short term, quick fix because it's big since we've only won 3 home games in our last 18, and I think the 3 was Southampton, Burnley, 2 relegation teams, and I think another one was I think Man United at home, or towards the end of last season. You're looking at these games and you're thinking, okay, there's other teams there at home we should be beating, and you're thinking, how can we decide? How can we organize maybe our structure to be structurally stronger, better on and off the ball. And Lewis was saying, I think we only drew 3 at home and then won the rest of the 16 games in the 16-17 this season. You compare it to this season where we've had 4 home games, and out of the whole league, we're ranked 17th best at home right now, only gaining points for the first 4 games. And you're thinking, okay, so why can't we replicate the form that we have had away from home? Because we've generated the most points than any other away from being 10. I think the second most is Arsenal with 9. So we've actually got the most points away from home. Yeah, we've got the 17th, most or worst at home. And you're thinking, why is there such a large disparity, especially when you look at the fixtures we've had as well? And it's something not clicking? Is there so much pressure on the players, to perform in our home stadium? Because when you think even the Champions League game against Villarreal, it wasn't the most inspiring performance. We were quite fortunate that game, especially with our goal. And you're thinking, what can Frank do to do it? Because I don't know if you guys remember, I think there was a period last year where Brentford had the best home form in the Premier League. I think they, first 14 games, had 7 home games, and you're thinking, how is Frank not being able to replicate it? And to be honest with you, I don't know how it's going to get fixed. But
I mean, also I think at the time where you said about Frank having the best home form, he also had the worst away form in that period of time as well, which was why they were sitting mid-table. So he's just doing the role reversal of last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, does seem to be that way. But Peter, you make a really good point. Brentford known for starting quick and great home record, and this is the first time that we've started quick in a game, and that home record hasn't been there. But at the same time, who would have thought we'd kept that many clean sheets in that first few games? I know that we can't at the moment, but I think you come in and his clear aim, from day one was very crystal clear defense, and that's the problem. Is the offensive part hasn't maybe been thought about as much here, and we know that's a little bit of an issue. Can't get my head around how he spent, and this is no disrespect to either player, because I still think Tell's going to get better. I actually really like Odegaard at the moment, but 70 million between them two, when you think about it and what that could get in terms of players we're linked with in the summer, get you 3/4 of the way there for Morgan Rogers, for example. It just maybe could have been spent a little bit better. Just put that out there. But let's discuss a few individuals in this game. We'll start with Xavi Simons. Lewis, I mean, I think it's fair to say maybe a slower start to his Spurs career. Maybe a good start initially off the bench against Brighton in the 10, but does he need time to settle in? We know there's a big demand, it seems anyway, in the Premier League. You're coming to a new country, new league, new language, a lot of things to consider. He's not really going to hit the ground running, is he? Very few do.
No, he's probably not. I mean, the concern that I have though is that we have signed a Xavi Simons, which I was all for, but we need a now fix. But we've bought a long-term solution, which is the issue that we've got right now on our hands, because he is the only fit number 10 at our club currently, and he's just joined from the Bundesliga. Which, I mean, I'm nothing against the Bundesliga, but I still think I just have skepticism around the Bundesliga of their talent adapting to the Premier League. I mean, I'm all for the talent. I'm still fully behind Xavi Simons. He's a quality player. There's no doubt about he possesses so much potential. and he has that potential in him to be one of the best players that I've seen play at this club for many years. He has the potential in him. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's just he needs a lot of time on his hands to be able to adapt to this league. And we're craving a now fix to a now problem, but we're plugging it with a long-term solution, which is maybe why we needed to. If we wanted a fit number 10 to get us through this Premier League season, maybe that's why we needed a Morgan Rogers or someone, or like Morgan Gibbs-White. I know the Morgan Gibbs-White didn't obviously have the whole fiasco about that, but they were Premier League proven talents at the end of the day, who have already shown it in this league that they can create and they can finish chances and they can be a starting number 10 for a big club. But unfortunately, Xavi Simons isn't that. Maybe he will be when it comes to the end of this season and going on to next season. Give it a year, he might be a phenomenal talent. But I don't think we can expect it, like at least this side of Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just realistic, isn't it? You know, Florian Wirtz, we all know that he's a good player, and anyone saying otherwise, I mean, really? But I just because the price tag is expected to hit the ground running at Liverpool, that's the thing. You can have a better squad than you did last season when you stormed the title. In Liverpool's case, doesn't mean you're going to storm the title this year when other teams improve around you, with people, and just new signings take a long while to gel. Because like Kirkes and Firpong, for example, if we continue to use the example of Liverpool, two great fullbacks, they just haven't gelled yet. Doesn't mean they're not good players. Doesn't mean Liverpool should get rid and panic. It just means they need a little bit of time to settle. You're not going to get that, though, in the Premier League to that extent. Let's talk about Mathys Tel, and I'll move to you, Peter. What are your thoughts on his performance? And going forward, do you see him as more of a left winger or a striker? Because I could be wrong, but I thought Frank said he saw him as more of a left-sided player. Then we've seen him under Frank pretty much start 9 times out of 10 as a striker.
I mean, I was also thought, when we made permanent signing at the start of the summer window, I was thinking, okay, he's going to be that inside forward role that everyone praises Thomas Frank for utilising at his Brentford side. And I was actually quite pleased we made him a permanent signing, believing that he'd play in that role. But seeing as though he played front, I was a bit like, okay, he might not have the physical presence to be that lone striker, which was the main worry for me. But then I think I mentioned it earlier, he did score against Leeds and then had an amazing international break with the French under-21s. So you could argue he was on, firing, and that was a reason to start. It was actually a comment I saw just before from, I think, Finlay, and he mentioned the fluidity in our attack, how the front four should be interchanging. And I felt like, in particular, with Tel starting up front and Odegaard, Kudus and Simmons as the front four, I feel like it is the perfect front four for an interchanging Frank front four. Because I think when you look at last year, you see Mbeumo and Wissa, and they're always moving about different positions. And then you got Shah, they come in, going on striker, going left wing. And you're thinking, okay, maybe he could implement this with front four we were utilising, yesterday. And I think it would work perfectly. So I think Tel could be that striker or left winger, in a more interchanging system.
That's a good shout. Okay, thank you about Mathys Tel. But in the end, whether you think he's good enough or not, I think getting on his back is not going to help. Peter, can I stick with you and talk about Wilson Odegaard? How did you think he played in this game? And do you think he's improving game by game? Because I think he is. Even if it's not like, oh my goodness, he's setting the world alight. I just see a few more signs, glimpses of promise and potential coming, shining through almost.
I completely agree with you. And I don't see him as our long-term left winger option, to be honest. Because I would like us to properly on maybe the January or summer transfer window. I know we're looking at Sevilla and we didn't actually bring him in. But I think, we've got Odegaard now. He's one of our only left wing options at the club. And you can see he's gained so much confidence, especially from last season. I mean, at the start of the season, I don't know how many games he actually started, but when you look at the games he has played in, you could see the confidence he's building. I know he made the mistake for the Brighton game, for the first goal, but even his overall performance in that game, we looked a lot more fluid on that left-hand side with him and Udogie. When Johnson came on, it seemed to halt any progress of creating chances on the left-hand side. And then you look at the Glint game, I think he was one of our bright sparks in a very dull match for us. And then you look again yesterday, he's always willing to take on his man. I think he had a brief dribble where he took about 3-4 players. the thing that worries me with Odobert is his final third decision making. He's got so much talent and quality on the ball, and he's such a skillful player. But when he gets into that final third, his end product just isn't at the level required just yet. It's always, a touch too heavy, or the pass is, not right, or he could have shot and he tried to lay it off, or it's just that final jigsaw piece missing, and that will come with time, I'm sure, because he's still a very, very young player. I think he's only like 20 years old. So I think it's been a really promising start to the season from all Bears.
Yeah, 100% well said. Thank you, Peter. Before we get on to Fan Forum and Monaco, let's go through a few of your questions now then. There's quite a few, so I'll try and answer as many as possible, if not all. So let's start with the question from regular Philip, who says, do you think that Archie Gray should get more minutes in centre midfield? Our closest player theoretically to a Declan Rice kind of profile. Interesting shout. Lewis, can I give you this type of question and also add in where you think his best position is in the case of Archie Gray, because he seems to have done well in the 8 this season?
Yeah, I think he could get minutes. I think it's just that right now, I think he's probably lowest in the pecking order when it comes to that of minutes, because I think you have Helinho, Bentancur, Bergvall, and Papsar all ahead of him in terms of those options who are going to get minutes. I think that he deserves it. When it's going wrong, his cameos against I think it was Bodo Glimt. I could be wrong. I think he made a cameo. I think he's had cameos of coming on. I think both times he was fantastic. I think that in that I think it's that 8 role. I would definitely presume closest to be. I think that's got to be definitely. I think he deserves minutes. I just think it's hard when it comes to Thomas Frank. I think he's very. When it comes to a pragmatic way of playing football, you kind of gel, and when it comes to picking your team, you're very repetitive in how you pick, and you think it's the best way to go about a game when you have players who have already played with each other and you already have set system and a set way of playing. So when it comes to an Aston Villa at home, which is a tough fixture, for Aston Villa a really good side, it's the easy option to go ahead and pick Pellegrini and Bentancur, who have played with each other, who work well with each other, and who are defensively solid and capable. So that's the idea of a pragmatic approach. Going and starting Archie Gray in a game like this is quite maybe a step too far for Frank in his pragmatic way of playing football, and that he wants time to. He really wants to incorporate young players in time and really give them minutes. So to just chuck Archie Gray in when he's had not that many minutes is kind of something that he wouldn't do. I think he definitely does deserve minutes, and it's just building up minutes when he needs to get more minutes off the bench, and then maybe he deserves a start. I think against Monaco, he definitely needs to get a good half hour running, which I think he deserves. And I definitely hope he gets minutes soon. I think our midfield, although I think our midfield is the biggest issue or big issue in Seven squad, we also have the most depth in that, which is quite a headache, which is kind of a weird analogy to kind of have. But I think it's an issue, yet we have a lot of depth in it. So it's just really need to hand in hand work that out. And I think Archie Gray could have a part to play. I just think he's too far deep in Thomas Frank's mind to get enough minutes for what he deserves.
Thank you very much, Lewis, for the answer. I think he makes some very good points with Archie Gray. I think he's a top player. It's just how you play him, when you play him, and using him right. But thank you, Philip, as well for the question. But it surprised me a little bit how maybe a little bit defensive we have been. I know our record last season is probably down to it, but Frank at Brentford, for me, in my head anyway, was known as this manager that was not Ange bold, but a little bit bold with his presses, particularly against the top 6. A little bit bold, you knew Brentford will give you a tough game, especially if you went to the G-Tech or even away from home, really. They'd be really high and, press, and they just haven't really seen that. And they'd have a lot of possession, Brentford, in games as well. And I think, I could be wrong, but I don't think we've had too much of the ball. Having said that, though, we go to the Etihad. Other Spurs managers have done it, don't get me wrong, but we have outplayed City and really taken the game to them. Next question I'm going to put to the panel, I'm going to ask you, Peter, is from Morgan Willits. Big up Morgan. He says, do you think Frank is the manager to take Spurs to a possible league title or Champions League? Would there need to be a high level of manager to take us there? I mean, that is a conversation Arsenal have been having for a long time with Mikel Arteta. It's already started with Thomas Frank. Tells me he's doing a half good job to be even discussing whether we can win these trophies. But what do you firstly make of the question and your answer to it?
Morgan, thank you for the question. It's a good question. I think very early days to be talking about, winning the Premier League or Champions League. I think before we talk about whether Frank is the right manager to take us to the Premier League or Champions League, I think we need to focus on what our squad is right now. And unfortunately, I don't think our squad has the quality to even, break into the top 3 in the Premier League. So I don't see us, winning the Premier League. But with the Champions League, one-off games and knockout game, you could argue Thomas Frank's, the way he sets up, possibly playing a 5-back, especially when you look at the Super Cup against PSG, you're thinking we can get results against teams. And I'm not saying we're going to win the Champions League, but there's that bit of optimism in me that thinks, okay, we can do pretty decent. If we get out this 36-team group or league, whatever it's called nowadays, you're thinking, okay, if we get a favourable draw, you beat them at home or, play, solid away. I think the one thing Frank has done, which will help us in Champions League games, is the fact that he solidified us. And I think that was the main issue from last season. We were so leaky at the back. And now that he has solidified us, it's almost like you have a bit more confidence in games like when we're going to play PSG away in the Champions League next month. And when we did play PSG, we did play, I know Man City was a Premier League game, but when we did play Man City away in the Premier League, you're thinking, okay, in these Champions League games, we could be able to perform and, get results. But I'm not going to say we're going to win it. I'm not saying Frank is the man to win it, but I do have some confidence that Frank can, get us over the line in certain games in the Champions League.
Love that. Let's hope so. And one thing that has to be said is not only have we improved defensively, but we have this never kind of die attitude. I think a lot of it is installed with Ange from winning the Europa League, because I think when you naturally win a trophy, there's this togetherness within the group. But also I think Frank's added to this kind of team spirit, which is great. So credit to both managers there. I'm not one of these fans that like either, I hate Ange or, you hate Frank, or, do you know what I mean? It just seems to be like you can't appreciate both. Whereas I go, thank you, Ange, for all you've done. In my eyes, you are a legend. But also, yeah, welcome, Thomas Frank. I'm going to put the past aside, appreciate what you've done, but also let's look at it from a new point of view. Yeah, but there's a couple more questions. Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple of questions here that I will put to both of you before we do move on. Lewis, again, it's from Morgan, who says, what are your opinions on Mikey Moore? I've never heard Spurs fans talking about him enough. Of course, reminder, he's on loan at Rangers. Rangers have been awful this season, hence why Russell Martin, crazy appointment anyway, has been sacked. I mean, that's a story in itself. Do you think Moore will now get more opportunities with a new manager coming in, I believe, appointed today? I think he got an assist as well in the last game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I rated the loan in general because I think the Scottish League is. I think it's too soon for him to get Premier League minutes because I think he's just such a raw talent. He's only he's only 17. I think he's only just turned 18. I think, he's very. I think he's at really at that point in your career where you need consistent minutes, and I think the Scottish League's a decent place to do that. But I think the loan just hasn't worked out at the time because it's not his fault. It's up to the manager, and the manager not maybe just being out of his depth in the point of being a Rangers manager and getting it tactically wrong on many occasions. That's why they lost so many games. It's not really his fault. But I think if he does not pick up serious minutes leading up to the January window, I would call off the loan and try and loan him out to maybe a bottom of the Championship club. Maybe, I don't know, a sort of team who desperately want to play him week in, week out. That's what you need. I have a lot of hope for Mikey Moore, but that he could be something big for Tottenham. And he's a local lad who clearly wants to be at Tottenham. I think and get minutes in the future. I think that's something you want to see because I think we're kind of in a bit of a dip in our academy. Our academy right now is actually really performing, but I think in the last 5 to 10 years we've had a bit of a dip of talent coming through the academy. Because if I could ask you one name of talent that's come through our academy, you get told Harry Kane. And the list kind of ends there, but of talent who's really been a success in our club for the last 10, 15 years. So I think he's a name that really could do it. We've had loads of previous names, Troy Parrott, Dane Scarlett, which have never really, we've had so much hype around them, but never really got there. I know that we've got Luca Williams-Barnett as well coming through, and I think he can also be a massive one for the future. I think these people in general, they need to just get minutes. And I hope Mikey Moore does get more minutes at Rangers, but if not, I'll pull the loan in January if not.
Good shout. I don't think Tottenham will want to do that, but they always well, you assume they have that option to do so. Thank you, Lewis, for that very good point. Because there are other clubs that I'm sure would snap Mikey Moore out. I'd love to sign him permanently, but I think they still take him on loan. Peter, a question here as well. I've got from Chantler9, who says, "How do you feel about Vicario? I feel his time is ticking." I mean, it seems to be quite an unfortunately nasty conversation when it comes to Vicario and Kinski. It's created from a case where people go, "Is Vicario fit to wear the shirt?" rather than "Is Kinski good enough to be the number one?" I think he's got to be careful how it's worded, in my opinion.
Yes.
But what do you make of the whole goalkeeping saga? I don't think Vicario is this awful keeper that is being painted.
I mean, I think I alluded to it earlier. I said Vicario's shot stopping is amazing. It did save us in the Leeds game last week. But then you look at especially the first goal yesterday, and you're looking at his positioning. Why was he so far off the line? Why was he so far to his left-hand side? Showing a lot of goal to Morgan Rogers. And then you're also looking at like the total time of the ball in the air, and you're thinking, how was it allowed to flip over Vicario almost? And it's like, as much as I love Vicario because his shot stopping has been amazing, and you got to thank him for all he's done. Really, in the lead up, to the Europa League as well. I mean, it's incredibly harsh to say that he's been at fault for most of our goals. But then when you look back at a lot of the goals he conceded this season, I think, okay, could Vicario have done better here? Could he, made a save there, especially the Brighton game as well. And then you look back to Kinski from Liverpool on his debut, and you're thinking, okay, he's a good shot stopper. I know he had a couple of games against, I think it was Aston Villa in the FA Cup last year. There's undeniable quality from Kinski, especially with his distribution. And I think we've got two solid goalkeepers at the club, and it's up to Thomas Frank on what he sees day in, day out on the training ground. I mean, obviously you can tell Vicario is a very vocal character in the dressing room. I think that's very prominent from what you see from all the players, what they say about him, and him being in the leadership group. And I think he's captained the team a couple of times before. He's a pivotal player in the team, so I think it's a bit harsh to say his time is ticking, Chandler. But yeah, I think we've got two good options in Kinski and Vicario, and looking at it, I think we do have to keep with Vicario.
Okay. Thank you very much, Peter. A lot of some Spurs fans calling for Kinski to be in goal on Wednesday, but I doubt we see that. And if we do, it would only be, I think, because of rotation reasons. Let's progress then. And before we get to the fan forum, I've got a very, very quick question because he is an ex-Spurs manager, and Ange Postecoglou, who was sacked, relieved of his duties anyway, is not a Forest manager after 39 days. I believe they sacked him about, I think it was 19 to 21 minutes after the final whistle. Mamriakis himself had departed the stadium after the second goal. Lewis, we both liked Ange. I get the feeling we both still do like Ange. Do you feel for him in this situation? Because it just feels incredibly harsh and maybe a good example of modern football where you're given just 8 games to try and turn something around.
No, I do feel for him. I really do. I mean, I'm happy for him in terms that the termination of his contract's given him a massive payday. So, God on you, Ange. Do respect that. But I mean, I think it's partly down to the owner himself. I think that this owner has single-handedly ruined Nottingham Forest's success. But I mean, it's not Ange's. I think yes, maybe Ange is maybe the way he sets up with his team. Yes, he's always going to be criticised for it. But it's the fact that when the pre-season that Nottingham Forest has had going into this season and the start of the season under Nuno Espirito Santo is the absolute pinnacle of a contrast of a style of play to Ange Postecoglou. And you have to be, as an owner and as a chairman or whatever he deems himself to be, you have to be astute and you have to realise that to go from at the start point of the season to change the way the style of play that drastically is not going to yield that much success. It just can't. You need to think. And now he has now gone from Ange to Sean Dyche, which is which is again the stark contrast has happened once more. And what are the players thinking when they turn up for a training every day? They asked the style of play they asked is like an absolute contrast from one another. What can they really do? I feel for him. I love Ange. He's massive. I think he's now actually a legend of this club. I mean, whether or not people think that, I don't know. But I think he's a legend of this club. And I feel for him. I really do. But I can't put the blame on him in this instance because I think it's actually down to the stupidity of Marinakis himself.
Absolutely. But as you say, it's the complete contrast in football style more than anything. I mean, in my opinion, I think when you go from so defensive to so attacking, you need to have a pre-season. You have to have a transfer window because Ange's football, if you look at Spurs, when he come in, look how many players departed the club and look how many players were signed. That was a big
Yeah.
turnover. And would it have been possible, our success in the first 10 games of the season, without pre-season, for example, and without that window? I personally don't think so. I really don't. So I'm not saying that he would have necessarily worked at Forest, but 8 games really to turn it around. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
mean,
personally.
and I was just going to say that even the Forest fans, who some have wanting to go, even said that they've noticed that there were tactical changes from him week in, week out. I mean, even when he knew in the back of his mind he couldn't play his style of football. That's why his first game against Arsenal and games at home, he played kind of how Nuno played. He didn't, the Ange ball that from Tottenham was never really given the light of day at Forest because he knows that it was too stark of a contrast. So it was quite, he didn't really play the way he wished to play because of the circumstances around his appointment. I think if Marinakis had given him a bit more time, maybe even just 1 month, he could have actually turned something around. But I do understand that the lack of set pieces was a main issue, that they just conceded so many set pieces in that time of rain, which is a major flaw to Ange, and that's why he had to go, and that's why he sacked him. But I still don't. I still think Ange was really unlucky and unfortunate that I feel like if given another month, he could have done something. I think it's just a sheer lack of time. But I think it was down to the other. I don't know why he took the job in the first place because you know what you're getting with Marinakis and the way he deals in football, and the fact that he's going from a complete stark contrast to managers just shows his kind of lack of awareness around football, and he just wants and wants and wants, and he's not willing to compromise at all.
Exactly that. I'm surprised how quickly he took a job as well after Spurs, because that was a crazy end to the season that would have taken, I'm sure, a lot out of him. Both, in his words, knowing he was going to get sacked. There's a lot of negative results, a lot of pressure on him, and then they win the Europa League, that jubilation. So that did shock me more than anything. Peter's had to jump a little bit early to continue some study, so we thank him very much for coming on, along with Simon, who had to jump. I can confirm, though, that he is okay. So it's me and Lewis who've got until the end. Fan forum then, before we get on to Monaco, Lewis. I mean, it sounded and looked like a success, didn't it?
I mean, it did, yeah. I think one thing that this club has been really trying to do since our Europa League win is communicate with us. There's been loads of interviews from Vinay, from Joan Lang, now Fabio Paratici, who's also been reappointed, and how they make their decisions. Because I think that's one major criticism of Daniel Levy that we had, that he just never communicated how he got to his decisions and what he's done. He just did it and said, he'd give you, and maybe at the end of the year, give you a lovely letter with a Comedy Spurs Daniel at the end of it, and that was done. He would never tell you anything else. He was so secretive, and he would never let you in on his decisions. He would just make them and just let you to wonder why he's done that or wonder what the thought process was. But the fan forum is another way of communicating how they do their decisions. I think Vinay and Joan Lang have really been trying their best to communicate how these decisions are being made and what their thought processes is. But I think the fan forum was deemed to be a success. So members there asking some good questions, got good answers. I think Ben Davis being there, not even club captain, just shows how much of a commitment he has to the club and his connection to this club, which I think was fantastic to see Ben Davis there. Even though I don't think he probably would have been asked to be there, I think he probably asked on to be there because he just was. Yeah, normally it's just the managers, the CEO or chairman, and the captains of the club, and he's not. He's neither one of those. So for him to be there, I thought was fantastic. And yeah, no, I think it was a great success, and it's just a great way of communicating with fans on how they make decisions, which is something we need to. We were criticising Levy for. He's now gone, and Vinay and Joan Lang are implementing that.
Exactly. I did get an invite, but unfortunately I couldn't make it. But it sounded good. It looked good, and a lot of people criticise it, the type of questions that they ask, but a lot of people criticise without actually looking at it. But I don't think we have to put them onto, I think we have to ask difficult questions, yes, but it's not always got to be all scrutiny. I think, you've got to be a little bit light-hearted. I think the club's in quite a good period. We're going through change and there's a lot to look forward to. So people get really annoyed that, if you ask, like, what's your favourite this or, favourite kind of moment, people seem to get really offended. Can you understand where those fans are coming from, Lewis, where they look at it and go, why aren't you putting them under pressure? But I personally don't agree with them. Now Levy's gone almost. I think you need to give this new look board a chance to kind of breathe. And if anything, the question should be, what are your plans? What are you going to do differently?
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think you can't put pressure on these lot instantly. I mean, Vinay has been in this job a matter of months, and to what it has been communicated to us, or what Vinay has communicated to us, he expected Daniel Levy to be with him for many years going forward. Or from what he's let us know, maybe he didn't. Maybe it's just him him not trying to let on to the fact that he knew Levy was going to be sacked from his job or whatever. But from what Joanne Lang and Vinay were known to be, from what was made aware to them from the people that own this club, like the Lewis and Enoch family, is that they thought Daniel Levy would be on this job as their executive chairman for many years going forward, and that's just completely shattered. And so I think this board and this CEO and this whole new look of Tottenham's backroom staff needs to be given time. You can't really put pressure on them and say, "Oh, what are you doing about this? What are you doing?" I think it's just open questions. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? I know one question. I think the last question of the fan forum was asking about the idea of implementing statues around the stadium, which I was obviously I think it's a great idea. And Vinay openly suggesting that he's all for this idea, and he's asked Tottenham advisory boards that were the best locations and the best ideas for statues, and that he'd actually put it to the fans on who he gives statues to. So I think that's a great idea. And something like that is what a fan forum should all be about, just asking genuine questions about your thoughts on this and what can we do. Because I think as a club in general, it's a bit off topic, but we need to do more to showcase our history, because we have a really rich history that we're not showing legends. Like, I know we just installed the Bill Nicholson gates, which I think is brilliant. Why not go one step further? Give him a statue, or maybe even give Heung-min Son a statue, maybe lifting in the Europa League. There's many endless possibilities we can to showcase the legends and the past of this club, and that's exactly what fan forum's for.
Totally agree with that, Lewis. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. I just think maybe it's a case of when Levy was here, and not necessarily blaming him, but it seemed like it was all about the business. And business is important, of course, I get that. But it felt like business first, football club second. It was all about the stadium. And you go there, even now, and I hope this will change over time. It feels like you wouldn't know it's the Tottenham Stadium. Apart from, let's forget the name a minute. If you didn't follow Tottenham, you didn't follow football, it just looks like a equivalent to Wembley, or a O2, but bigger and better and newer.
Business.
Where you go, your business, yeah, it can hold anything. And that's the whole idea, isn't it? With the NFL dressing rooms, the away dressing
F1
rooms,
F1 go-karts as well.
Exactly, it does everything. But the away dressing room is really nice. And I asked about that when I first got the tour and the stadium just opened. I paid for the tour, and I just said, "Look, why is it that nice?" And they're like, "Well, we try and make it as neutral as possible because of other events." I was like, "That's where your problem is. You make it too nice for away teams. That's a big thing." And it's of course not quite as nice as the home team, but they've got 2 big TV screens in there, little snack bar, etc. They've got a load of modern stuff, and you just go to somewhere like Sellers Park, let's say, or Craven Cottage, that away ground. Of course, it's not nice, but it should be made a little bit difficult. Whereas I just think away players look forward to coming here. Look at the stadium, look at the dressing room, and go, "Oh, this is absolutely lovely. This is better than a home dressing room," and that's where you create a little bit of a problem. But I'm going off topic here. The point is, I hope that we take the football club more seriously. Before, it's been like a case of we're not proud of our history because it's got to be the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I just think there's a load of things that you got that Stadium Plaza, for example. Why is that all not covered in Tottenham stuff? It all feels very neutral, bland, and plain. Do you think this would change, Lewis, with Levy got it? Whether it's him or not, we won't necessarily know, but it seems maybe he was a figurehead for something, but it seems like hopefully that's going to change.
Yeah, maybe. I do know where you're coming from, because around the stadium, it is forecast as a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but apart from stadium in general and a few banners which might come up from like badges and whatever, it doesn't really showcase, because you have the Tottenham badge on the store. I think is like a wooden shelf. You have the Tottenham badge, and you have an NFL badge, and then you have an F1 Drive badge, which is a bit confusing because you mean like, am I at the Tottenham Stadium or am I at the shopping centre? I mean, you don't really know what you're getting. I mean, at the end of the day, we do need to do more to showcase that this is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, that we have such a rich history that we're so proud of to be Tottenham, to do what we do. and we need to do more. Have a statue outside the West End or whatever of Bill Nicholson, or I don't even know. There's so much possibilities how we can have this. I mean, you can't come to the stadium and sniff like, oh yeah, by the way, this is a Tottenham Hotspur thing, because you already know from the logo outside the stadium. There's nothing else really pointing you to the fact that it is.
But that's another thing. Why is it, the North Stand, the South Stand, the West Stand, the South Stand? Why is
Yeah,
it not, like some fans did call it to start with, the Park Lane and the shelves,
yeah.
side. There's
But
proper
I mean,
hardcore fans call it
it's
that.
for like the concerts in the NFL, because imagine you go to a concert, or you imagine go to the NFL game, right? Denver Broncos versus NFL Jets. Oh yeah, where are you sitting? In the Bill Nicholson stand. That's got absolutely nothing to do with NFL. So that's exactly why this is the purpose like that. But again, you go to Man United, you have the Sir Alex Ferguson stand, club legend. That's why he should be there. So that's why that's his stand. This is what we need to do. You need to have the Bill Nicholson stand, have a Jimmy Greaves stand. There's so many legends of this club that we just don't really know. The only thing that we have outside this ground is a Ledley King and a Harry Kane mural on distinctive walls. There's and the Bill Nicholson gates now being reinstalled. But there's still so much more we could really do.
Lewis maybe he was trying to turn it into a shopping centre. He's trying to build the hotel as well and just trying to appeal to a load of different things. And it just like the club shop, I swear when it opened, it had navy kind of outside of it, but it went brown and they added that NFL badge and then the F1 badge come a couple of weeks later. So you're absolutely right. I mean, the initial idea looked good, but it did evolve. But let's now talk Monaco then, because we face AS Monaco away on Wednesday in the Champions League. I think all of our Champions League games have been Tuesday, haven't they? Could be wrong about that, but it's good to have one on the Wednesday to mix things up. Lewis, how are you feeling ahead of this game? It is 4 points for Tottenham, 2 games into the Champions League campaign. Is this a game that we could win?
I think it will be. I don't think it'll be as easy as maybe it's pinned to be. I think as this is a pot 4 away team, you think, oh, pot 4 away, home and away should be doing these bish bash bosh easy 6-pointers. But I think we've probably been given the hardest pot 4 team maybe on paper as it seems. But you can compromise that for the fact that I think in pot 1 and pot 2 and pot 3 even we were given really nice fixtures. So you kind of have to compromise it a bit there. I think we can win this. I think it can be done. I know that they held Man City to a draw not too long ago at that stadium in Champions League a couple of weeks ago. It was 2-2 for a last-minute Eric Dyer penalty, who's not fit for the game. But Man City completely dominated them the whole game. I think they had close to 80% possession. I think we can do it, but yeah, I mean, I think it'll be tight. I don't know. I'm still very 50-50 on it.
Fair enough. Would you take a draw though? Because you talk about it being difficult.
I probably would, because we stay unbeaten. I know that Monaco have recently just sacked their manager as well, so they're under new management. Who the manager is, couldn't tell you, unfortunately. But I don't even know if they're appointing manager. They might be under interim managementship currently, because I don't think they have actually appointed a new manager. So I think this is really, could they be having a new manager bounce? Is this manager still implementing his ideas? It could be really raw. There's 2 ways really to look at it. Are the players really going to be up for it, showing that they turn to the new manager playing me, or are they still trying to work out their ideas are they there for the taking? That we're kind of tactically astute, and that the fact that we can, whilst our team is starting to gel, I don't know. But I think a draw isn't the worst result. But I think because our performance on Sunday, and the fact that it's also a pot 4 team, there'll be fans that expect us to go and win this game.
Yeah, it will be, and there'll be fans that if especially if we lose this game, we'll just be like, oh look at it's all gone downhill. Here we go again. I just think patience is needed, because it's going to be a lot to juggle all competitions. And Frank's clearly whether it's from Levy, whoever it's from, and I think this aim will continue with the idea of sustained success, but to compete on all 4 fronts, and that isn't done overnight. It's as simple as that. With the team we've got, you're absolutely right with the winger depth you mentioned earlier. By the way, I think you're spot on. But the point is, I like Odebear, but when you spend 70 million on them and you look around other kind of partnerships with strikers and left wingers and other winger options, you just think, really, could we do a little bit better? But on this game, Lewis, what would be your lineup? So if you were in Thomas Frank's shoes, you were the manager of Tottenham Hotspur right now. If I gave you that power, what would be your 11? Of course, we're out the likes of Tell. We weren't in the Champions League squad, and we could have other injuries soon, such as like Basuma, Davis, and let's say Romero doesn't make it too.
think I would set up. Actually, this. I mean, I can't. I've criticised Frank's performance. Yeah, I probably would set up quite similar to how he did against Aston Villa. Maybe Tell not starting. Maybe. I mean, I know Philipkins just said Richarlison on the left. I would also I could get behind that because I know in the Europa League run late last season he was constantly playing on the left. 2 semi-finals against Bodo Glimt and the final, he put a brilliant shift on that left-hand side. I think this is an opportunity where Kolomwani, I don't know about starting. I think this might be a step too far for a start, but a decent set of minutes. I think you could really, because obviously without Matisse Tell, so theoretically Richarlison or Kolomwani has to start the game. It probably will be Richarlison, just because of that. He's already familiar with of our season. He's already contributed a lot. He's got so many minutes. I think Richarlison is destined to start this game. Maybe you could start Richarlison on the left and have Kolomwani up front. Maybe you couldn't. But obviously, Tell not being registered is an issue where he just isn't going to be travelling. I think, is that now telegraphed to start on Sunday? Perhaps. I don't know. We'll have to see. But no, I probably would start Vicario. I think people starting Kinski is a bit too far fetched at this point because Vicario is just there. I mean, I think it is debate as you're correct. It's all well and good thinking that Vicario needs to be dropped, but is Kinski ready? Is also the other concern about that. I don't think he's ready yet. I think he will be soon though. So I would start Vicario. I think depending on Destiny Udogi's availability, maybe he's back on the bench. I hope he is. Probably would have to start the same Pedro Porro and Jed Spence at the fullbacks with Kevin Danso and Van der Ven. So the same look defence as we started against Aston Villa. I don't really think you can change it. I think the midfield again, because we are away from home, you want that stability which Bentancur and Paulinho offers you. I think if he started, I think Papsar could also start here. And if I'm completely honest, I would maybe go as far as actually dropping Xavi Simons. Not because I'm not trying to hurt his confidence in any way. I just think we're just demanding so much from him. And right at the start of the season, we actually started Papsar in kind of a 10 role. I think he was actually getting some of his best performances for us I've ever seen him do. Which obviously, I think you look at the idea of, if Xavi Simons isn't playing at 10, he has to play on the left. Maybe we just give him a game off. And maybe we just try and go back to the start of the season under Burnley, where we had Papsar through the middle, where it really worked. I can't even pinpoint myself. But for the first few games, even against Man City away, I believe it was Paulinho, Bentancur and Papsar. It really worked. There was something about it. So I would maybe go as far as to say that Sarr, Bentancur, and Paulinho are in that midfield. Maybe have Richarlison on the left, Kolomwani up front, and Kudus on the right. Maybe it's a bit more far-fetched, I don't know. But I think in this fixture, you can maybe move stuff around and really try and just go through it and just maybe be a bit more adventurous. Because why not? I think with 8 Champions League games, you can have a punt on a game or two and still have 6 games to fall back on. And the fact we're unbeaten already, we're still sitting around the playoff bit of the Champions League. We have some wiggle room to go and go. In fact, when we still have Copenhagen and Slavia Prague category 3 and 4 games at home, which we should be winning, I think a game like this, you can maybe jumble around, give Papsar a go at the 10 and see what happens.
Very good shout. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't really think about Richarlison playing on the left, but it's not an awful idea at all. Makes sense, as you said. Europa League very key there. And do you know his record in Europe? I think for Tottenham isn't bad. If I remember, I think it was Marseille scored.
It's 2 headers.
That's it. Yeah, 2 headers. Conte, I think it was. Anyway, it was a very big moment. I remember it was both close together as well. But anyway, the point is he looks more dangerous as well in Europe. What's your score prediction though, Lewis, for this game?
That is a great question, which I don't even know the answer to myself. But I mean, I would love to say a win, but I just think, I mean, maybe it's away. Maybe because it's away, we're not going to lose because we haven't lost away yet. I don't think the season under destined start for us. I don't think we have lost away. So maybe it's we can just go in, got the draw to fall back on as it looks like this season, and maybe go for maybe to try and win. I don't know. I think it will probably end up in a draw though. I think looking at this, which makes the most sense. I'd probably go for a 2-2 draw. But I don't really know. I mean, I don't think we will lose. I mean, I don't know why I think that. I just don't. I mean, I think the defensive. I think our defense, and if we were to play Benjamin, I think we will do enough to be defensively stable that we will not concede that many goals. My only worry is that It's just scoring. I mean, it's a headache I didn't think I would have under Ange, and I never really did. But it's the headache of scoring because apart from set pieces, I'm concerned about where we're getting our goals from.
Yeah, is a concern. That is the problem. Hopefully, we can find that right formula. I still think the midfield is a little bit of an issue, but the idea of Sar Bentancur and Palhinha makes sense. That's the thing with Sar. I mean, I literally think he was outstanding, and you need rotation. Don't get me wrong, but a couple of games now, at least, he's found himself outside, of the team, which is a shame. But I'm going to end with Philip's question. He says, "Could we risk playing Bergwijn, Palhinha, and Sar? Oh, interesting. As a 3, Sar as the number 10. Say Bentancur for Everton away, where he'd probably fit better." I mean, the more you think about it, he does seem Bentancur's type of game, Everton. I can't really describe why, but he always seemed to do well against Everton. And just thinking of them if they're Trisha Gay, I think Bentancur wins that battle. What do you think of that idea of playing that midfield, Lewis? Of course, it's not what you said you would do, but what do you think?
It's an idea I can get behind. I mean, I think in order, I think the idea just kind of rolls up. I mean, it's not. I think Bentancur's getting a lot of ask from him, and I know that he just signed his new contract, probably the last big contract of his career, where he's staying on at Tottenham for a new number of years. And Frank said he signalled how much he supports this idea. So I don't know what Thomas Frank has with Bentancur, but he loves him clearly. I think that I could get behind this idea. I think Bergville would offer you a bit more, like just a bit more ideas. Like when he has the ball sitting deep and he has a lot of space around him, he can pick out a good pass, and he could really, or he can even drive forward with. So I think I could definitely get behind this idea. I think it's another something that involves dropping Xavi Simons, which I'm not. I think it's an idea that we might actually have to take up. Not because I'm trying. I mean, we did it against Bodo Glimt. He was actually not starting, which a couple of our fans were a bit like, "Well, why are we doing that?" But I think now it makes the most sense to do that, just because he's just, or maybe is this game? Oh, it's outside of the Premier League. Maybe less demands. Is this a sort of game where Xavi Simons could really try and pick up the ball and showcase what he can do in a Spurs shirt? Maybe, but I just think maybe dropping him and just giving him a break, and maybe 60th minute has half an hour. Then come on, give him a 10 if we're 1-0 up, or for instance, and just go and create and just show me what you can do. I think that's maybe what we can implement in this game. But no, I think both will play and Sarr complement each other very well. And it's just, I think Sarr, for me, in recent months, the best performance I've seen from him has been at the start of this season, where ironically he was playing as kind of a 10.
Yeah, it seems to be, and I think a lot of it is for me not because he's further forward, but as you said, because he's central. It just seems to feel right for Sarr to be in front, and
I think it's also just his pressing as well. I think because one of his things that he does really well is just his running. You associate with Sarr being a constant runner. When you have the ability from that high position of such a high portion of the pitch, as in being a number 10 to press. That's kind of what led to João Palhinha getting his goal against Man City, was Pep Sarr's press on James Trafford. I think that's also what he offered us against Burnley. He was relentless in his pressing. Maybe against Monaco, when you have that number 10 who's just sitting just behind Richarlison or the striker, to have a constant presser is what forces turnovers, and that's why we won against Man City. We were just forcing the turnovers high up the pitch with Pep Sarr. Maybe against Monaco, you can have that with Pep Sarr constantly pressing their back line, forcing the mistakes.
And Bentancur used to do that. You're right, but Bentancur used to do that for Antonio Conte. But I think since he got that injury, it was against Leicester. I remember we lost the game 4-1, and I think we were winning 1-0, and then Bentancur come off, and it all went downhill after them. But he was like our most important player with Kane, like side by side at one point. And I remember him for his attacking output, his pressing, and he just really lost that. And I think a lot of it maybe was, as much as I like him, Ange, he said, "Look, we're safe passing, mate. That's the way we play." Whereas Bentancur used to be this ambitious passer, didn't he? And it didn't always work, but cutting through the lines. And I just think this is a different Bentancur. It's not one that I can say, although I like him, I prefer the more pressing side of him and the bolder side of him that we did originally see that he was signed for. If you look at him when he came in Juventus, he wanted the ball. He was driving forward. He was seen as almost, when he first joined the club, I thought it was number 10, the way he was playing. But it was that kind of, you get the point, forward thinking for an even defensive manager under Conte. So do you think his role's changed as time's gone on? Of course, it's important to note he's got a little bit older, but I think a lot of it may be to do with the manager and also his injury record.
Yeah, no, his role has changed because under Conte he has played as a double pivot in a two-man operative midfield where you play maybe a 3-4-3. I think that's Conte's main system, where you'd have the two kind of wing backs on each side, and then you'd have Højbjerg and Bentancur in the middle where they play as a double pivot. But now under Ange, obviously, you play more of a 3 in midfield, where there's obviously distinctive roles between the 3 of them. You'd have maybe one holding, for instance, an East Basuma role. Then you'd have Bentancur just sitting above him, and maybe a Maddison just in front of them. So it's just a different role. And maybe I think his best performances was under Conte in that double pivot, where maybe because Højbjerg is sitting, he has the license to press forward and the license to link up play between Harry Kane and maybe the wingers as well. But I mean, yeah, his role has changed, and I think his best was when he was in a 2. I mean, for instance, kind of could play him in that 2 with Palhinha and himself acting as a double pivot if he was to play a 3 option, a holding 3-back option. Maybe that's something to test out whether or not Bentancur play better.
Yeah, maybe we need to try that. But you got anything to say, Lewis, before we wrap up the podcast? Obviously, it's been a long one.
Not really. Just hope we win on Wednesday and kickstart our form. Maybe a win on Wednesday if we could do that to kickstart and go ahead, because it's another away fixture on Sunday against Everton. So, and Everton are in good form, so I think that will also be a tough one.
It could be a tough week, and it could have started against Villa. I don't want to be negative at all, but it's a tough run of fixtures, and there's going to be bumps in the road. It's about sticking with the team, and also it's about the team and Frank, learning lessons and improving game by game. You hope, anyway, as time goes on. But thank you, everyone that's listened to this podcast. If you listen via audio on podcast platform, wherever you listen from, please drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Let us know where you listen from, what you thought of this episode. If listening live on YouTube, which you can do, of course. There've been a lot of questions that come to us live or afterwards on YouTube. Please subscribe and like, and thank you for all the growth recently. I can proudly say that the YouTube channel is actually one of the fastest growing Tottenham fan channels right now. I think I posted it on X when I talked about reaching 1 million views. In terms of how the statistic goes, it's flatlined, but then the last 3 months is a massive spike. So thank you very much for continued support. Got few exciting bits of content, let's just say, coming out this week, so do keep your eyes peeled and that's on the YouTube channel. A lot of it is available and will be multi-platform. I'll make sure of that. Big thank you to Simon Yemane, who come on earlier. You can follow him literally at Simon Yemane across X, for example, and other socials. He's a Swedish TV presenter and kind of analysis, very interesting to listen to. Thank you to Peter, who come on earlier. You can follow him at Poro Season on the likes of X as well. We thank him for coming on, and a big thank you to you, Lewis, of course, your co-host here at the podcast, and also recently appointed as editor. So, where can people find you on the socials, and talk to people a little bit about that? Because you do some, well, I think, very, very key work behind the scenes.
I mean, key, I don't know. I mean, just try my best. But yeah, I don't really. Obviously, the X handles there. Don't really use that much. But if anything I do on this page might be to hop on a podcast with Harry, or any piece of content, or some piece of content he might put out. Maybe player ratings or game week predictions, whatever, is something that I could maybe be behind the scenes editing. Just try and give it its finishing touches, make it look nicer. So that's something that I would sometimes be doing if I have the time, and yeah, no, I really enjoy it.
No, you do some great work, much valued by myself. So thank you very much, Lewis. And of course, recently I was Football Content Awards finalist, and then we find out the results on. Well, actually, it's funny you say that. Literally a month from today, 20th of October at the time of recording, 20th of November is the ceremony in Leeds, and it's because of your amazing work and others that are there in the first place. So thank you very much.
30 days time, hopefully you'll be bringing that trophy home. It's really deserved.
Hopefully. Thank you very much. Hopefully followed by Tottenham this year. But always welcome. You know that, Lewis. It's always a pleasure. So thank you very much. And it was a long one, so sorry to keep you for so long. But really do appreciate it. And thank you to everyone that has listened. And last but not least, the most important bit, come on, you Spurs.